Welcome, crew, guys, gals, ghouls, excuse me, and otherworldly beings. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. I'm your ghostess with the mostest, TessaTNT, broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. And thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. It is an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to be hanging out on the airwaves with you tonight. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as I do. If you want to listen in your free time, whether you're working it or working out, feel free to look me up wherever you listen to your broadcasts or podcasts, and you should be able to find me there under We Are Paradox Media. All right, so tonight we're doing a little makeup show. We didn't get to do a show on the 8th. I had to do overnight security for La Plata County Fair. So, yeah, I figured we'd get into it this evening. We're going to get into it deep. We got some trippy TikToks coming your way.
Both parallel Bibles. They are from the 1880s. The Old Testament is Hebrew and the New Testament is in Greek, and I'm going to be comparing the two today to show you the differences between the two. Okay, this is the chronological table of Jewish and contemporaneous history. So this is one book, The Creation of the World, the Deluge, and then it says Assyrian Empire founded in 2234. Then you go down to this one, Creation of the World, the Deluge, and this has the Chinese Empire founded. And the date is, it's hard to see, the date 2650 maybe. Here, 753, Rome was built. 753, Rome was built. 580, keep in mind these are all BC dates. This says Jews captive in Babylon. These are the things that happened down here. 580, Jews captive in Babylon. Same thing. Okay, so now this one has a lot of information. It goes down here to 1866 on one page. But this Bible has this page and this page of information ending in 1866. And this page talks about these people.
Yes.
It's bizarre to me that this is in a Bible.
Isn't it?
So I'm going to go over that now, if you're interested in that name. But before I do that really quickly, in 1492, the Jews were banished from Spain, Portugal, and France. Terrible suffering caused thereby. And then you see discovery of America. Wonder where they went. And you go to this one, and it has it as well. 1492, Jews banned from Spain, Portugal, and France. Discovery of America, 1492. So who started America? Okay, this is where this Bible has a lot less history. And then this Bible has a lot more history. You can hear the Reign of Terror, 1793. 1793, and this one is way up here, and it doesn't even have that. And then this one stops in 1866 with civil rights granted to the Jews in Italy. And then you go to this one, and it stops in 1886. So this is where it gets really good. This is where there's more information. So 1849, Baron Lionel was elected into Parliament, and Rome became a republic. Pay attention. The first great exhibition in London. So this is the very first World's Fair. I'm going to read all of this. He was elected to Parliament for the City of London, a violent outbreak against the Jews in Stockholm. I just think it's strange that this right here is connecting to this name. And if you know, you know. Can't say too much on here, but I think it's very strange that this is in a Bible. And here in 1858, he was the first Jew to sit in Parliament. And then you start seeing this word come up more.
Snar.
I've done a few videos on this. There's just a lot here to unpack and take in, and I'm going to have to do that.
This pyramid is in Antarctica. Take a look at this right here, especially when everything's in plain sight. So this right here, this is at the UN office, the UN headquarters. Got this on their wall. And if you look right here, this is Antarctica, which we thought that it was just in one spot, but this is all around, keeping us in this fishbowl, Operation Fishbowl, you feel what I'm saying? What Admiral Byrd was on. And I read the diary too in 2015, and I need to go check that out too whenever I get a chance, because he's telling more of what's really going on, but saying it in a good for y'all to understand, you feel what I'm saying? But beyond this ice, look, we got more land. We're not done yet. So the amazing part about all of this is Antarctica pyramid is the size about 8 times bigger than the Great Giza pyramid. Feel what I'm saying? Which is, that's what they display the most and then cover up everything over here. But back to it, and base of this structure is about 2 by 2 kilometers. But base of the Giza is less than 250 by 250 meters. So we know this guy funded the first operation for Admiral Byrd. And I was like, let me go look at Antarctica real fast and check out the whole continent on the map. Take a look at this right here. It's universal law for them to put everything in plain sight, but it's just up to us for us to really look and really pay attention to what we're looking at. You feel what I'm saying? Because I'm going through the whole Antarctica, and first of all, they naming all of these islands. You know what I'm saying? If you look, this is extra land that they showing you. So that's how we know there's something going on. Oh, what is that? If you take a look right here, the family that funded that first mission. So what are they doing with the island right here? That was a lot of acres in Antarctica. Look at all them acres. What's going on here? I thought nobody lives there. I thought nobody pulls up over there. So when we looking for these people and we be like, man, why we don't ever see these billionaires and the trillionaires? Because they over there. First off, I believe we're on a flat plane of existence, but it's hollow. Because I know y'all didn't heard about the story of Agartha. And that story, that's what Admiral Byrd added into his diary. Take a look at all these different worlds once you get outside the ice wall. So when you got the firmament and you're outside of this wall though, still enclosed in this world, you got other planes of existence that carry out once you get outside them walls. That's what's making the most sense to me, which is still named Jupiter, Saturn, and all these different other worlds, which you could call these multiverses, you know what I mean? But that makes the most sense, especially when you're talking other species, such as us. Go ahead and follow the page, man, if you want more videos like this. Part 2 on the way. You dig?
So it's 11 p.m., you're babysitting, the baby monitor turns on by itself, and you hear an absolutely terrifying voice. What do? And this particular DM from Sophia, who claims that she got this babysitting job from care.com, documents some of the weirdest things I have ever heard over the course of a week long babysitting job. This is what she said. This is long, but I need to tell someone, LOL. So back in like February, I found this babysitting gig on care.com, seemed normal. Mom's named Dana. Twin boys, 6 years old. She messaged me fast and was like, can you start tonight? And I needed the cash, so I said yes. Get to the house, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. No street lights on the block, which should have been my first red flag, TBH. Dana's talking a mile a minute, giving me the whole rundown. Snacks, bedtime, no TV. And then she gets to this baby monitor on the counter and goes, if this turns on by itself, just turn it off. Don't answer it. And I literally laughed because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. She left so fast that I heard her car pull out before the door shut all the way. The kids went down easy, 9 p.m. It was really no drama. I'm sitting in the kitchen scrolling on my phone, and at like 11:04, the monitor turns on by itself. It was staticky with some breathing underneath it, and it didn't sound like it was coming from the kid. I turned it off because that's what she had said to do, but I did walk back and go check on the boys. Everything was fine. The second night I was actually debating going back, but the pay was pretty good, so I decided to go. The twin Sam was being really weird at bedtime. I was reading him a story, but he kept staring down the hallway, and then he kept staring back at the baby monitor. I asked him if everything was okay, and he just said, it's not for us. And then he turned the page like that was just a normal thing to say. Well, they're asleep. I'm back out in the kitchen, and around the time of 11:11, it turns on again. Static, breathing. I sat there for a full minute before I could even make myself turn it off. When Dana came back home, I actually asked her about it, and she wouldn't even come inside all the way. She just stood at the doorway. Even though her voice was very calm about the situation, her body language told me something different. She said it's been happening since they moved in, and the family before them left really suddenly, and she never asked why before signing the lease. I asked why they don't just move, and she said we can't, in a tone that made it very clear I wasn't getting more of an answer out of that. And because I felt so deeply concerned about this family, I showed up for night 3. On this particular night, the one thing that I noticed is that the boys wanted the hallway light on for the first time ever, and the monitor this night turned on at 11 p.m. sharp. No static this time, just breathing. But then a really far noise in the background, almost sounding like it was coming up from the floor, but I didn't turn it off this time. I sat there for like 10 minutes straight listening to nothing, and then it clicked off on its own. I had sat there replaying it in my head, trying to decide if I had actually heard anything or if I was just tired. Night 4, I actually started recording my own audio on my phone just to have something, mostly to prove this to myself that I wasn't going insane about it. But at about 10:40-ish, the light on the monitor turned on again. Earlier than the night previously, I picked it up, static, and then that same faint, almost voice thing that I swear for half a second, as it cuts out, it sounds like it is saying something. And I swear on everything, it sounded like it said, she's still awake. I went up there after that, even though I told myself that I wasn't going to. I just wanted to check to make sure that the boys were okay. Both boys were awake, sitting up and looking at the same spot on the wall between their 2 beds. Not scared, just looking. I asked Eli what he was doing, and he said nothing, but it sounded like he just didn't want to talk about it. When I played the recording back later, there was a stretch of almost 4 minutes where the audio is just quieter than what it should be, and I don't really know how to explain it better than that, but this is when night 5 hits. When I arrived to Nanny this night, Dana looked especially exhausted. She said that she had something early the next morning and needed one more night, and honestly at that point I think that I had said yes just because I was curious to see if there was anything else that would happen. She had paid me plenty that week. The boys did not want to go to bed. Eli was quietly crying. Sam just kind of held his hand across the gap between the beds until they both crashed from being so tired, not really from being calm. I sat at the table, not able to look away from that monitor. Around 10:15, before the monitor even did anything, I heard one of the boys talking upstairs. And he wasn't crying or calling for me or anything. It was just like he was having a normal conversation. Back and forth, pause, and then back and forth. I went up thinking maybe Eli couldn't sleep and he was talking to Sam, but when I got there, they were both flat out asleep, taking deep breaths like you would when you're actively in REM. Neither one of them had moved from how I tucked them in. I stood there in the doorway for a second or two listening, and the house was completely quiet. I told myself that I probably misheard something from the TV next door. I went back down and tried not to think about it too hard. And at 11 p.m. exactly, the baby monitor turned back on. Light on, no static buildup this time, just straight to the almost same voice, but it was a little bit longer this time. And this time it wasn't just faint in the background. It sounded like it was right up close to the mic. Like whatever it was, I've learned exactly where to talk into it. And I swear on everything, it said the words, "We see her." I genuinely don't know what the rest of it was. Then it cut off, but the light stayed on. I've tried to recreate it out loud myself a few times and it never sounds quite right. It just sounds like me saying words. I went back upstairs that night. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was different. I just didn't sleep that night. Dana got home around 6:30 and just looked at my face for a second and didn't ask anything, which honestly felt worse than if she had. I never went back after that. She texted me twice after to see if I was free and I just never answered either one. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth with this 100 times. Maybe it was just old pipes or a dying monitor or a mom who was really stressed out, who stressed me out along with her, but I'm curious to see what other people think and if anyone else has had an experience like this. I've also never taken another job with care.com. A weird thought that I just had like telling this story was there a Frogger? Was there like someone hiding in the house? Was this not paranormal? Because when I first read this DM, I was like, oh, this is for sure some like paranormal stuff going on. But now that I'm like reading it out loud, I'm like, oh.
Like she's still awake.
Oh, I'm scared. I guess the moral of the story is to check care.com reviews. I'm not sure. Listen to your gut. I don't know what the moral is.
My wife thought I was cheating because I started to look so good. But really, it's just tirzepatide.
Oh, no.
This is apparently...
If you ever go to New Mexico, you feel like it's its own country. And it's also the most misunderstood state in the country. And once you see why, you cannot unsee it. I'm going to talk about it in this video. So save it and come back to it if you don't have a few minutes to listen. Spain founded Santa Fe, New Mexico, in 1610, 10 years before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth. It is the oldest capital city in the United States, and the Palace of the Governors is the oldest public building in the country. It has flown 3 flags, Spanish for 200 years, then in 1821 Mexico won its independence, and on a stage next to that same building, Santa Fe became Mexican. Then American, a seat of government the whole way through without a single break. And here's why. In Texas and California, the Anglo flood came so fast and so heavy that it somewhat buried the Spanish world underneath it to a degree. In New Mexico, that never really happened. The land was too dry and too remote to attract that kind of rush. So the older culture never became a minority in its own home. It stayed in charge. New Mexico is the one place where the substrate stayed on the surface. Underneath even that, there is something older. 19 pueblos are still there on the same ground, some of them for 1,000 years. Acoma has been continuously inhabited since around the year 1100.
Super cool.
Older than any European settlement in the country by a pretty wide margin. 2 of the languages spoken in those pueblos, Zuni and Caris, are what linguists call isolates. They cannot be connected to any other language on Earth. Not to each other, not to anything.
Wow.
Linguists have been trying to place them for like 100 years, and they have absolutely nothing. In 1680, those Pueblo peoples did something almost no one else in the Americas managed. They rose up, they drove the Spanish Empire completely out of New Mexico, and they were able to hold on to it for 12 years. This is not a place things were done to. It is a place that pushed back and won. All of that is still sitting there, and it produces the strangest fact, in my opinion, about New Mexico. The oldest, most rooted ground in the United States is also where we built the atomic bomb.
Oh, nice.
Los Alamos sits on a mesa, a short drive from villages still speaking a Spanish that kept words the rest of the language let go of centuries ago, and from pueblos that were old when Columbus sailed. The deepest past in America and the most terrifying leap into the future that we have ever accomplished in America are 40 miles apart in the same high desert. So when the U.S. showed up in 1846 and took Santa Fe from Mexico, it wasn't claiming an empty frontier. It was annexing an old, functioning, deeply rooted society that already knew exactly who it was. Then America could not decide whether it wanted it. It took New Mexico 62 years to become a state, longer than any other territory in the lower 48. Roughly 50 statehood bills went to Congress and died. The objections were written down. Too Catholic, too Mexican, too Indian, too Spanish-speaking. Congress looked at a place that had been governing itself since before Plymouth and could not tell whether it counted as America. When William Taft finally signed the papers in 1912, he turned to the delegation from New Mexico and said, quote, "Well, it's all over. I'm glad to give you life. I hope you will be healthy." He said that to a place that had been alive for 3 centuries. That is like a group project that ran for 300 years, and one guy walks in at the end, signs his name on it, and says he is honored to have breathed life into this class project. Honestly, I would just be too bemused to even be angry at first. It's absurd. Taft had been president for 2 years and 10 months. 10 months after that, he ran for election and finished 3rd. And here is what New Mexico did with that insult, though. When they finally got to write their state constitution in 1910, they could have scrubbed themselves clean. They could have made themselves look as Anglo as possible to get through the door. They did the opposite. They wrote protections for Spanish speakers directly into the Constitution, language rights, voting rights, guarantees that their people could not be pushed out of civic life. They did this in the same year as southern states were building Jim Crow to strip black citizens of the vote. And be clear what that was. Nobody immigrated here. The border moved over a society that was already 300 years old, arguably older. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo had promised the people their property, their religion, their rights in writing. They were not refusing to become American. They wanted in. They just refused to accept that getting in meant erasing themselves. They made America keep its word. And that is the whole state, in my opinion, in one sentence. It also makes New Mexico sit differently on the map than anywhere else. Most American cultures are trees, as I've talked about. They start from this base or a hearth, and they spread, right? New Mexico is bedrock. Layers were laid down, Pueblo, then Spanish, then Mexican, then American, and none of them ever fully erased the one beneath it. Everywhere else in this country, the new thing paves over the old thing. In New Mexico, you can still see all the way down. And that is why the food is unlike anything else, why artists keep moving there and never leaving. It's not aesthetic, it's depth. And the Spanish layer is not even the deep one. Acoma is 900 years old. The two oldest cultures we have ever identified in North America are called Clovis and Folsom, and they are named after the New Mexico towns where we first dug them out of the ground. Every archaeologist on the planet knows the word Folsom. About 50 people live in that place. America spent 62 years deciding whether that ground was good enough to join. People have been standing on it for 12,000 years. New Mexico has been a state for 114 of them. So that's New Mexico. Hopefully you learned something in this video. Hopefully it sparked maybe an interest in visiting. If you're looking for a place with depth, I mean, I just can't imagine a place that is deeper from a cultural perspective than New Mexico. So worth checking out. All right, as always, chop it up in the comments. Let me know what I got wrong. I always miss something, and keep it civil in there. And give me a follow if you like this type of content. This is the type of stuff I make. I enjoy it. I'm not going to stop. Going to continue to build a deep catalog. So as always, appreciate you guys. Catch you guys next time. Peace.
A woke or satanic actress tried to bash Jim Carrey. Watch what happens. So, years ago, if you remember, Jim Carrey stood on live television and drew a symbol on the floor that made a talk show host's face go pale. He named names. He called out a whole system right there in front of a live studio audience. And then, right in the middle of a sentence, his phone rang. Everything he was saying just stopped, like someone flipped a switch. You are about to see every one of those moments back to back with the real footage. And by the end, you will understand why one actress cannot stop watching and why the internet still has not stopped talking about that phone call, even all these years later.
Alex claims that when he was a kid, he met someone under his back porch that changed his life forever. He grew up with neglectful parents at best, and at worst, his dad would turn his screams and his fists on his child, but he learned pretty quickly how to dodge the worst of it. Now, his mom was not very much help in any of this. All she would do is just hang out in the kitchen and smoke her cigarettes. At the time, they basically lived in the middle of nowhere. It was a really long walk for a 6-year-old to the next neighbor's house, so that meant there was no one to run to for any sort of help. Alex was a pretty small kid, so he learned pretty early on that he could fit into very tight places. He could hide behind the futon, he could hide in the dryer. He basically became a master of hiding. This one particular night, though, he chose to do something a little bit different. He could hear his dad's yells, and they were starting to get violent. And his mom was not helping the situation. She was basically just adding fuel to the fire. So Alex knew that he had to find a really good spot to hide. And he had actually found just a few days earlier that there was a hole in their back porch. Now, this was not big enough for any sort of grown man to fit through, but it was just big enough for a small, skinny 6-year-old to fit through. So he wrapped himself in a blanket and grabbed his hippo stuffed animal and crawled into the hole. Now, this was in the middle of autumn, so it was cold outside. It was 40 degrees and dropping. When he crawled in, he got all sorts of scrapes and even a couple splinters in his hand, but he fit. It was actually pretty spacious compared to most of his hiding spaces. The biggest issue came in with the ground, because it was still a little bit wet from the rain that happened a few days earlier. So Alex curled himself up into a ball and covered himself with his blanket. But at this point, he was freezing cold, and his teeth were chattering. But being down there was better than being up in the house with his dad, acting the way that he was. Suddenly, Alex heard a voice, and it said, "Honey, are you cold?" This was not the voice of his mom, because his mom's voice was much more scratchy and more hoarse from all the smoking. This voice was sweet, like honey. So he turned toward the direction where the voice was coming from, and he could see the outline of a woman laying on the ground next to him. She had a pretty butterfly necklace, and she was just about as dirty as Alex was. At this point, Alex just nodded, not really thinking about how this woman was down here and he hadn't noticed. The woman started to crawl forward, and she wrapped herself around Alex to keep him warm. He compares it to sitting next to a campfire. That's how warm he felt. The woman said, "You've gotten so big, Alex. How old are you now?" So Alex says 6. And he's still kind of thinking, like, where do I know this woman from? The woman says, 6?
She used to be under
wow,
your
you're
bed.
all grown up now. So Alex then asks, "What's your name?" And she responds, "Lily." She then asks Alex, "What is your favorite thing to do?" And he responds, "I like board games and I like coloring." And Lily says, "Wow, I like board games too. I love Scrabble." Alex really wants to play Scrabble, but it's a lot of words for a 6-year-old. So Lily says, "Maybe one day we'll play." Lily then tells Alex, "I need you to listen to me. Your daddy put me under here, so I can't leave." And then she says, "Alex, could you do me a favor?" She then says, "When you wake up, I need you to go to the police station and ask for an officer by the name of Lowell Joyce. And I need you to tell him where he can find Lily, under the back porch. Then he'll come and get me, and maybe then we can play Scrabble." Alex was just excited at the idea of finally being able to play Scrabble. So he asked Lily, "Can we be on the same team?" And she says, "Of course." Then she says, "Good night, Alex." And he falls asleep. He wakes up in the morning and immediately hears Lily's voice saying, "Go now, Alex. Your dad's at work." So Alex put on his shoes and his coat and started walking toward town. But keep in mind, this is a distance for him because the neighbor's house is already far enough. He had to walk for almost 2 hours. Just as he was getting a little bit turned around, suddenly he heard Lily's voice saying, "Okay, now cross the street." So he listened. And then she said, "Okay, now you need to make a right." And it's right there. By the time Alex made it into the lobby of the police station, he basically collapsed on the floor. And one of the officers came running up to him, asking him if he's okay. He immediately says, "I need to speak to Lowell Joyce." So they put him in a holding area that was warm, they get him a change of clothes, and he waits for the sheriff. Sheriff Joyce comes in and speaks to Alex. Alex looks him straight in the eye and says, "I was told to tell you that Lily is under the back porch, and you need to go and get her so we can play Scrabble." Officer Joyce turns pale. At this point, a lot of things blurred together. He remembers going back to his house and the house being covered in yellow caution tape, and them taking his dad away in handcuffs. After that, he lived with his grandparents, Sheriff Joyce, and his wife. He tried asking about what happened to Lily, but he kept getting shut down because he was just too young to know. But life got better, like a lot better for him. Sheriff Joyce was the best grandpa that he could ever ask for. And when he turned 16, his grandpa finally took him back to his dad's house, and they had bulldozed the entire thing. Then they sat down on the back of his truck. He opened up a beer and gave Alex an orange soda. They sat and they drank about the entire can before his grandpa said, "Lily was your mother." So Alex asks, my mom? That doesn't make any sense because my mom lived with my dad." But Officer Joyce tells him, "No, Lily was your actual mother." Officer Joyce then says, "Lily was my daughter, and I loved her so much. But when you were about 6 months old, she vanished." Alex's dad had imprisoned her under the porch. His grandpa then asks, "What I've never been able to understand all these years is that you said that Lily told you to come and find me. How did you know that she was under there?" So Alex explains everything, that she kept him warm that night, and that he probably would have froze to death had she not been there. But Alex still remembers one crucial detail from that night, is that his mom had on a butterfly necklace. And that same butterfly necklace was still on her body when they pulled her out from underneath that porch. This story makes me both scared and really, really sad at the same time. Thank you for listening to today's story on Explore Paranormal. I'm going to go cry. Throw a heart on the video if you liked it, and leave a comment if you... See, I'm sad. Anyways, leave a comment if you guys like the story. Let me know your thoughts. And give me a follow if you like stories like this, because I tell them all the time. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
From Earth all over this galaxy. Okay. And others.
Are there humans being born on other planets that haven't experienced?
The aliens that I came in contact with appeared to be human, just like other humanoids here on Earth. They had varied color, hair, and light and dark skin, eye colors that were ranging from blue to green to brown to hazel to anything in between. So yeah, how they got there, that's a good question.
Mankind's greatest achievement, if you like, seems to be the moon landing, and we're approaching the Apollo 11 50th anniversary this year. Was that all set up? Was it a stage? Because if we've got this technology, why are they wasting money to go to the moon? I mean, and did we even go to the moon?
It's a great question. Yeah, we did. They had sets set up in the event that they weren't able to get good footage. So that's what the sets were for. The mankind's movement into space with the Apollo program was a cover-up for hiding black budget money.
Purely a financial.
Yeah, and to get the public involved with, getting excited about space and political gain.
Okay. So you believe we did land on the moon, Neil Armstrong put that foot on the ground, that's all real?
Yeah. They were shadowed, they had company. Yeah.
That's the next question. Did they have craft up there watching?
Oh, yeah.
them?
Yep. They had company watching.
Do you think we have been back secretly since then?
Yes,
or?
we have a base there. The Lunar Command Center. The Germans put their first base there in the 40s, and we took over that base in 1991 as part of the agreement that started IDARF, the unit that I was in. Wow. Paying for the lease of the moon base required that Earth provide 25,000 soldiers for use where and when the IDARF command structure needed. And so that's how it came about.
What would you say people are out looking at the stars all the time, looking at UFOs. How many are actually ET and how many are our own UFOs?
That's a great question. I was talking last night with some other attendees here, and Earth has a defense grid. So the UFOs that are viewed within our skies have permission to be here. Whether they're human or they're ET, that's a great question. I would tell you that the majority of the UFOs seen are almost certainly human, and there's only a small percentage that are ET.
The ET ones that we do see, so I take they're a part of the Alliance, or are they the enemy as well, some of them?
Well, it depends on who you ask that question. There are still a lot of dark forces at play here on Earth, and they have control over certain geographical areas. So the ETs that come in through that portal or through that door into those geographies are allowed in. Over here on the other side of the planet, they would be shot down. I mean, it's a mess. We have a mess here on the planet, and it's something that we've got to get straightened out.
Are we going to get ET disclosure? I mean, are the governments keeping it a secret with good intentions so we don't get exposed to the war that's going on? Or would you say the governments, the elites are manipulating us? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that your first question is if we're going to have ET disclosure. Yeah, we will. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. Their intentions initially, I think the time frame when this was first an issue was 1948, 1947. So the social mores, as well as the way that the command people were, Eisenhower, that was a different generation. And their thinking was, okay, this is something that the public is not ready for, and we need to keep it under wraps for now until we can get a better handle on it. Unfortunately, there were far too many nefarious...
So as we all know, last week, Tulsi Gabbard's brother was arrested for trying to lure children to his hotel room. One of the lesser things that is being reported on this case is the fact that he was going around saying that he was Jim Morrison Jr. And if you told me that a year ago, I would have just written it off. However, given Tulsi's record with MK Ultra files, not to mention her aunt mysteriously being murdered, plus her involvement with a cult from birth, I decided I was going to look into this a little bit further. And honestly, my first thought was he doesn't look anything like his parents. In fact, he doesn't look like anybody in his family, really. But obviously, that's not how genetics works. You can't just eyeball it. I understand that. And then I compared him to Jim Morrison. And familiar. Yeah, I see a resemblance. Now, Bhakti Gabbard was born on January 5th, 1971. And granted, I'm not a big music person, so then I decided to look more into Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison died July 3rd, 1971. It's not going to mean anything now, but keep it in your brain for later. The red flashing lights started when I found out that apparently Jim Morrison's father claimed that they were descendants of the Scottish king, Robert the Bruce, because y'all know how they love bloodlines, these people. And my intrigue was absolutely peaked when I found out that Jim Morrison's father was a naval intelligence officer. We're talking high up. He was a rear admiral by the end of his career. However, the important thing is that his father was responsible for the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam. The U.S. essentially faked an attack and pretended that the North Vietnamese vessels were returning fire on them, which directly led to the U.S. Congress giving Lyndon B. Johnson any authority to assist any Southeast Asian country whose government was considered to be jeopardized by communist aggression, meaning that this was basically the justification for the Vietnam War. It came out that the NSA deliberately skewed the intelligence to create the impression that an attack had been carried out, when literally no Vietnamese boats were even present. Now, we've talked extensively on this channel about how the CIA director in the 50s and 60s did PSYOPs programs, especially targeted at counterculture, with figures like Timothy Leary. By 1962, the Army was calling for a new kind of war that could exploit vulnerabilities and neutralize political opponents at home, especially left-wing movements. And that's when they unleashed the MK Ultra program onto the unsuspecting public. In the same year that his father incited the escalation of the Vietnam War was the same year that Jim left Florida and transferred to UCLA. One of those most famous alleged cases of CIA mind control MK Ultra stuff was Charles Manson. And Jim Morrison was left out of a lot of the Manson story. The fact that the Doors was only first even brought to the attention of record companies by a bandmate of one of the Manson family members. Bobby B was also friends with Frank Zappa, who turned Manson down for a record deal, but then frequently let Manson and his family use his cabin. Frank Zappa's father was a top chemical weapon specialist at the same facility that was tied to chemical warfare research and MK Ultra mind experiments. Zappa's manager was one of the first to start Laurel Canyon, which was like the center hub of the counterculture hippie movement. Oh, but it doesn't stop there, folks, because Morrison is rumored to have had a relationship with one of the girls who was a Manson family member. And you know the famous story about how the guy from the Beach Boys picked up a hitchhiking Manson and Manson sent him a bullet and all that stuff? Did y'all know that Jim Morrison was actually with him when they picked up this hitchhiker? Do we really think it's a coincidence they just picked up this hitchhiker? No, I'm sorry. But even beyond that, there's an even more direct connection. Because y'all know Jim's signature hairstyle? Well, that is because of Jay Sebring, Jim Morrison's close personal friend and personal hairdresser, who was one of the victims of the Manson family when they killed Sharon Tate. And it was after this that things really started to unravel for Jim, because his connection to the Manson family was actually so underreported that they never mentioned that they brought Morrison in and interviewed him with the LAPD. He was brought in for questioning over the murders because he was so closely tied to everybody involved. And around this time is when the government started going after Jim Morrison. And he was arrested for this indecent exposure thing, even though all of the bands said that it never happened and people in the audience had conflicting tales. I'm not really going to get into that, but basically he was arrested and convicted of indecent exposure at a concert. Now, mind you, during his entire time as a celebrity, he was telling people that his family was all dead, which obviously wasn't true. Of course, this could have been a metaphorical thing. There are plenty of kids that rebel from their strict parents, but Jim Morrison also claimed that when he was a child, one of the most formulative things that ever happened to him was witnessing a horrific car accident with Native Americans bleeding outside of the road. Like, it was awful. And he claimed that the Native Americans, he felt like their soul entered him. Now, both his family and records indicate that this never happened, or at least there's very little evidence of things being described the way that he did. Now, instantly, that reminded me of Winona Ryder. Y'all remember when I had that whole video about her? Well, Winona Ryder grew up in a cult called the Rainbow, where they believed that the dead souls of Native Americans would rise up when the earth starts to turn black and fall sick, and those Native American warriors were going to help save the world side by side with all of the white people. And those light-skinned brothers and sisters would be the reincarnated souls of Native Americans who were killed and enslaved by the first light-skinned settlers. And who was Winona Ryder's godfather? Tim Leary. And guess who did a poem at a fundraiser to help Tim Leary get money for his defense? In fact, Leary actually provided the introduction for a book about Jim Morrison. Then I discovered Patricia. Patricia, who met Jim Morrison when she interviewed him for her magazine in January of 1969. Patricia, who married Jim Morrison in a Celtic hand fasting ceremony in June of 1970. While Jim Morrison was on trial in 19 1970, she was pregnant. And according to Patricia's book, when he gave her a very chilly response to showing up at his trial, several months pregnant, she was visibly pregnant, according to her, she decided to not go through with the pregnancy. But what if that was not quite true? Because for years, people have just written off Patricia's story as an unhinged groupie. But as we all know now, when there is a mass campaign to discredit somebody and call them crazy, it usually means they're trying to hide something. In the next video, we're going to focus on the last year or so of Jim Morrison's life, as well as the early life of the Gabbard family, and show y'all that maybe, just maybe, Jim Morrison Jr. isn't that hard of a stretch.
So I go to this university where they teach consciousness-based education. This is the style of learning that this university uses, and it is.
Sorry, guys. This is like
best thing in the world.
Advertised.
So, have you guys ever had the thought when you're in school, when you're
also predicting a ground invasion, which I've already predicted for months now? Remember, I told you months ago that there would be a U.S.-led ground invasion. Trump will lose control of the stock market soon. The elites are not his friends, and they will dump it now. Earlier this morning, Donald Trump went on a tirade, obviously showing that he's lost control, dropping F-bombs and other expletives on Fox News.
Again?
For those of you maybe who were tuned in, I don't really watch the mainstream media. U.S. stock market has been pushing about 1,000 points lower all morning as the U.S. military mulls new cell phone ban for troops. For those of you that don't know, these devices are weapons. Not only are they surveillance devices, but they can be remotely detonated, as we saw with Israel and Hamas not too long ago. So there's a reason the U.S. military is getting rid of these. For those of you that don't know, and I predicted this as well, 6G can see through walls and it can measure your biological functions. So 666G, this is the upgrade from 5G. It's the new mobile communication standard that's being rolled out by the deep state elites along with their big AI data centers. Can actually see through walls, detect your breathing and your heartbeat, among other biological functions. Do you understand why they needed to get that inside now? Because guess how that communicates with the towers and the G, with that stuff. That's why they did that. I have to say that's my opinion. Fauci, of course, on Capitol Hill has pleaded the Fifth Amendment like 111 times. I'm not expecting anything to come of it, but again, it proves the point that all the deep state insiders have been lying to you. They are all still in power, and all of these people are frauds. And if you trust any of these people, and this includes your government and anyone in power, honestly, that's your fault. And you will bear the repercussions of trusting institutions and trusting these people in charge. They are absolutely going to slaughter the American public. I have to say that's a metaphor. But that's absolutely what they're going to do. Keep in mind, all these same people were the ones that locked you down in your houses. All of these same people were the ones that did this. These are all the same people, guys. The Epstein traffickers, they're all still in charge. All of them. Keep in mind, Donald Trump presided over Fauci the entire time during the lockdowns. Trump presided over the lockdowns. Now, Trump, from what I understand, didn't appoint Fauci, but he could have easily fired him, but he never did. So just keep this in mind. Elon Musk and others, I did that expose video, they're the ones that recommended the poopy diapers on your mouth and the unequivocal fingers.
That's gross.
They're the ones that recommended it, not me.
Why'd you have to say that?
So just understand that. I've always told you the truth from day one. And so the American people want Nuremberg for all these people. That's what they want. The American people want Nuremberg, right? I mean, am I wrong about that? I mean, based on what these people told us in 2020, entire cities and towns should have been burnt to the ground. There should have been body bags literally everywhere. Have you noticed that all these people fear-mongering us are all still alive too? How is it even that Fauci doesn't have lesions or boils all over his face and body, and he's, suffering some kind of gruesome, you-know-what? I mean, the fear-mongering, the level of it in 2020 was an absolute insane asylum. But proving my point, all these people are still around. Except for Lindsey Graham, of course. Closed casket on that one. In fact, it really was enjoyable watching all the deep state elite spend so much time and taxpayer money at Lindsey Graham's funeral yesterday. Wasn't it? Imagine if they spent that much time, effort, and taxpayer dollars, like solving poverty, homelessness, taking care of our vets, ending these non-foreign intervention and wars, actually declaring peace instead of a ground invasion in Iran, and attacking the Middle East incessantly, even though they promised not to do that. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if they, decided to cure cancer? I want you to keep this in mind, too, that all the deep state elites say you're in the singularity and that AI is the new God, but they still haven't cured cancer. I just want you to understand that. You're in the singularity.
How are they supposed
AI
to make
is
money
going
off
to
of
solve
it?
everything, right? But they haven't cured cancer. No. Haven't solved any real world problems. Couldn't stop the bat poo from floating around in 2020. Have they solved pollution, air quality, water supply, clean water for people? No, none of that. Homelessness, nothing. Nothing. Now you remember that. The U.S. government, which has been lying to you for nearly 100 years about aliens, now admits aliens as well. But with all that alien technology, have they cured cancer? No. But they do tell you there's interdimensional UAPs. I want you to think about this. There's interdimensional UAPs and UFOs now, plus AI and the singularity. There's all this new radical tech that's going to save the world, right? Build robots that are going to take care of you and give you back massages. But there's no cures for cancer.
No, can't have that.
That's what they expect you to believe. So again, even their own narrative is counterintuitive just to logic itself. I mean, honestly, guys, if you haven't figured out yet that my father and myself and all my members are the good guys, you shouldn't be here. If you think the deep state elite is here to help you, you should honestly leave this channel and not watch me. If you haven't figured out that I'm literally the best person alive, and that, you know what a lot of people lack nowadays is courage. You know what's in short supply in the United States of America? Courage. You know, it took courage in 2020 to tell the elites to F off, like many of us did. It's taking courage now to speak the truth. You know, it takes courage to declare war against the deep state, start a real peaceful revolution. You know, it takes courage to do that. And what's in short supply is courage. In fact, this is the least courageous I have ever seen the American people. And I want to touch on something too, is that, you know, I'm noticing among the normies, and you know who you are. Man, you're freaked out, aren't you? I've noticed this. The peasant classes, as we call them, they're freaked. The American people know something's up. They know something's wrong. They know something's off, but they can't put their finger on it. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed the American people, they know something doesn't feel right, but they can't figure it out. Well, I'm here to tell you, you will soon. I've predicted it all on this channel. Massive stock market collapse, World War III, U.S. national draft, ground invasion, cyber attacks, multiple false flags. They're all coming. All of them. So there's a reason why the normies are a little freaked out, because they're starting to sense something has gone awry. And they're not wrong about that. So again, you always trust your instincts, you always trust your gut. Now, the U.S. stock market in the gutter, and this has just begun. Understand this has just begun. And understand when the collapse.
So they officially merged the U.S. military with the Israeli military. And for those of you that can't see the writing on the wall, in my opinion, there's only one reason why they would push so hard for this to happen. See, they're fully aware that the U.S. service members won't take to the streets and start slaughtering their own people. But when you merge two militaries together, it's quite easy to just fly the IDF over here to the U.S. streets and do just about anything and kill just about anyone that the U.S. government wants unalived. And if you think that they're going to release the weapons out of the armory in the U.S. military bases and tell these people that they can go defend their country against the IDF, who happens to be slaughtering those service members' family members, you've got another thing coming. These people have the keys to the bombs and the guns and the ammo and the equipment that would be used by U.S. service members to defend the American people against the IDF here on home turf. And if you don't think that the IDF is bloodthirsty and would love nothing more than to kill Americans, you don't know anything about what's going on in the world around you. And I think that's part of the reason why we got here, is because so many people just believe that our greatest ally really does love Americans and Christians and all these other things. But these people are completely clueless about what's happening in the Middle East the last, 50 to 100 years as they set all of this up. The non-existent state of Israel that didn't exist until the 1940s. People are just lazy. They refuse to go find factual information, and they just gobble mainstream news information up as if it's gospel. But one thing is for sure, we have one of the most capable, most equipped, and most armed civilian population, dare I say veteran population, in the entire world. We've got 100 years of experience of winning war after war after war, and I know that some of these aren't considered actual wins, but the battles themselves, every time we set foot on a battlefield, U.S. service members seem to come out on top. If there's one thing I can stress to everybody as you go about your day today, whatever you may be doing, it's time for you to start legitimately training yourself, because they will be sending these people door to door to find you for anything that you've said, liked, shared, even in private messaging, that is anti-IDF, anti-genocide of the Palestinian people, anti-merger of U.S. military and Israeli military. They will hunt down every single one of you. And my plan for today, at least, is hop on this here mower. I'm going to get out here and mow myself a clean spot. I'm going to set up my targets. And I'm going to start training like I do a few times a month. As much as I don't want to spend the money on ammunition, I'm not left much of a choice, because I can be better with my tools of the trade. I'm old. I'm in my 40s. I've still got some fight left in this dog. But you should know that this is and was and always will be the plan of these people that have captured our nation. They've officially merged our militaries, so there is the only roadblock that was standing in front of the IDF's door-to-door campaign that is going to come. With the mergers of the military, they're going to use some of the U.S. service members that would take the orders of going door to door and killing or arresting and throwing into concentration camps. They'll use some of the U.S. service members that are willing. The ones who aren't are going to be ejected from the U.S. military. They're going to fly over the IDF over here. They're going to give them vehicles, enough ammo to do their job, and they're going to cleanse this country just like they did Gaza, just like they're trying to do with Lebanon, just like they're trying to do with Iran. So my advice to you is buy more ammo and actually take your lazy, fat, useless ass out and start fucking training, because I promise you, whether you're fat, lazy, or whatever, you can still squeeze a trigger, and we're going to need everyone capable of doing this in the near future. Good luck, folks. Happy training.
I've tried to tell people the sun is not 93 million miles away, using logic, using reason, using mathematical equations, 3D models, even CIA documents, and still nothing. How such intelligent people can honestly look at the video I'm about to show you and try and rationalize an explanation to make what they see in this video something other than what it is. I shot this video myself last week with my Nikon P1100 camera. It has 125 times zoom and gets you closer to see things that you can't believe. And I mean that literally. People refuse to believe what their eyes are seeing, and they will try and use pseudoscience to justify it, and justify they will. They show zero remorse or sense of shame that they are lying to themselves and trying to make us go along with the lie we've all been fooled to believe. First, I'll show you the video as is. No filter, no cuts. This is usually the time their logic and pseudoscience start to kick into overdrive. They will pull out quote after quote scientific equations, theories, or whatever they can to justify what it is they're seeing as not being what they're seeing. So what I did is I went through the filters to give you the best look I can. I don't have a negative filter on my phone, so the next best one was the shadows filter. So I will then play the video with the shadows filter on, and you tell me in the comments what you see. I want to know what you see. Now, I'm sure if you are like most of the people that I know, you can see that this video change your worldview and will not accept your eyes seeing it. I'm sure I will get maybe 1 or 2 comments, and those comments will say, you need your head checked, or you shouldn't have skipped science class. But not one logical, educated person will sit and discuss, like an adult, what it is they're seeing. Why are they seeing that? Why they were told that's not possible when it's right there in front of their face. Why it's so hard for them to accept that it's possible. Nothing. It will be some unfunny comment about my intellect. And that's it. There's no respect left in my life for people like that. It's aggravating hearing them try and tap into some non-existent storage of knowledge that will help them make something, anything, convincing and sound somewhat intelligent. If people knew the truth, they'd be mortified at how far they've put their foot in their mouth when they arrogantly believe that they know more than everyone else. When their belief is not actual knowledge, it's unquestioned religious doctrine claiming to be science. So, here y'all go. Do with it what you will.
All right, let's see what's going on here. process to logically conclude that. The sun is not 93 million miles away. Our sun is, in fact, local. And I'm just reading what's on the screen here, in case you are just listening and not observing with your eyeballs. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind.
This is an electrical device of some kind. It has to be magnetism or frequency energy. 7 different worlds. We are living in number 8 right here. Dualidad.
Pero este triángulo es abajo.
As is below.
Es el yin yang.
Yin yang. Los dos de vida. Sí, dualidad. Of course, the orientation is going to be very symbolic. It only cuts on with the anthropomorphic figure right here looking up. You can see the leads right here and also the contacts right here. Hay un positivo y negativo también, los dos, porque no se funcionan en esta manera. Nada. ¿Qué es la diferencia de este y una batería?
Que esta es energía natural, la herbolaria, la astrología. Ellos les enseñaron todo ese conocimiento, pero el hombre todavía no estaba preparado para recibir todo ese conocimiento.
Hay que mostrar algo. Hay 3. Un cable. Positivo, negativo, tierra. The neutral, the hot, and the ground. The 120 is hot, neutral, ground. The 230 is hot, hot, ground. This is an electrical device of some kind. Another handbag.
Sostiene la bolsa del conocimiento o algo. Está en todas las culturas, igual como la llave de ancla.
This is 4,000 years old. You seen a Bible? ¿Cuál tiene más años, este o la Biblia?
Esto.
This is older than the Bible, yet it has this very Christian symbol in there. I'll let you know that everything on earth is circular.
Esto podría ser también una representación cósmica, calendario astrológico.
¿De los mayas?
Sí, de los mayas y de todas las
It looks
culturas.
like he's about
inteligencia
to open up a
para
kilo of
todos.
book.
Exacto. Triángulo que está señalando hacia arriba, pero aquí este está abajo. Como es arriba, es abajo.
What he was saying is right here. This is a symbol of the universe. These are the planets. ¿Cuánto? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 mundos?
Sí.
7 different worlds. We are living in number 8 right here. If this was fake, I think this would be center. Look, it's not perfect. They're showing you that this is not made in a factory. If they could carve a rock like this, do you think they could have squared that up perfect? Of course they could have. There's not a single mistake in any of this. Where's the oops? Where's the oh no? Where's the I fucked up? I don't see it. This is what Arturo said. The artifacts to be exhibited were found in region and feature iconography that does not directly correspond to known Mesoamerican symbolic systems. Their engravings, geometric patterns, and the intentional arrangement of certain elements suggest a highly civilized technical and symbolic knowledge, the meaning of which is still being studied. One of the most striking aspects of these pieces is the presence of quartz deliberately integrated into their structure. The quartz emits a visible luminescence. This phenomenon does not occur spontaneously nor randomly, but only when the pieces are aligned and connected under specific conditions. Right? From a scientific perspective, quartz is a material known for its piezoelectric properties and its ability to interact with pressure, mechanical energy, or energy fields. Frequency. However, the way it was worked and arranged in these artifacts suggests an advanced understanding of these properties applied with an intention that goes beyond a mere ornamentation. The symbols carved on the surfaces could yet be related to an as yet deciphered activation, communication, or signaling system that links form, matter, and energy. The light generated when the pieces are joined should not be interpreted as a random effect, but rather as the physical reaction that points to a premeditated functional design. These findings open new lines of research into the technological and conceptual level of the cultures that inhabited Tula, or even earlier groups, and raise fundamental questions about the use of mineral, energetic, and symbolic knowledge in antiquity. Far from offering definitive answers, these artifacts invite us to observe, document, and analyze rigorously, maintaining an open mind towards what we do not yet fully understand. I think this fits the bill of do not fully understand. Rocks that emit light endlessly, no battery attached.
I work with women who want to reduce their drinking without getting sober. And
So I just did a mini series on how we being watched 24/7 by AI, talking about AI. From Raven cameras, from flock cameras, from geofencing locations, from social media, right? But everything I'm about to tell you right now is literally deeper than what we already been talking about. Fam, I just watched a movie called Stargate, the one in 1994, I believe, with Kurt Russell. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it if your spiritual eyes are open. In this movie, it's about ancient Egyptians using a ring that they found, and it opens up a portal to another dimension. And y'all knowing me by now, I got to thinking, right? We ain't too far from this movie, Joe. Look at the names of these top companies right now. We got Starlink, we got SpaceX, we also got Oracle. And by the way, if you just look up the definition of Oracle, a person or an entity having divine wisdom, prophecy, or some type of divine insight. And by the way, it's one of the biggest software companies on earth right now that was ran by the CIA. So keep that in mind. And last but not least, we got CERN. I think everybody know about CERN. Now, when I just mentioned these names, every one of these names, they all dealing with some type of space, dimension, or another world. And it's not me doing no conspiracy theory or none of that. They named their company this, not me. Now look at this. This is the internet. It was launched in December 1969 by 4 universities. It was built by a Pentagon agency called ARPA, A-R-P-A. And this is on DARPA's D-A-R-P-A website. So again, we're not talking about conspiracy. We're talking about public information and strictly facts. So yes, they are behind the thing that we on right now, the cell phone, the internet. Now let's fast forward to today. We got Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's company. And right now they could put a chip in your head that could wirelessly control a mouse with your own thoughts. So we talking telepathy. And of course, Elon is listing this as clinical trials. And guess who made the research possible? The one and only DARPA. These folks physically started a network on land, the internet. Now they got a network in somebody's mind, a network in somebody's skull. By the way, did you know that the numerical value of W in Hebrew has the value of 6? If you type in www, what you type in right now is 666. If you don't believe me. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. So in 2002, this same agency built this they logo. And at the bottom, you know what that say? Knowledge is power in Latin. This is a real government logo. Like, it's really on their website. Go check it out. And you know what their mission statement was? To get information on every single body. Credit cards, internet, everything. So when the public seen this, you know they got the freaking out, just like we all should. They took the image down and created another one. Then 11 years later, a guy named Eric Snowden, he came out to expose them. And this is not the first time that the government been caught doing weird stuff. Look up MK Ultra. So MK Ultra was a CIA project where they did studies running from 1953 to 1973. And what they was doing was giving people LSD, training people on spiritual remote viewing, electroshock treatment, even putting people under hypnosis. And when the public found out, they burnt all the files. Again, this ain't conspiracy, this all public information. And now the government is building the last piece, blockchain. And if you don't know what blockchain is, I'm pretty sure you guys know what Bitcoin is by now. It's a digital currency. Bitcoin is ran on blockchain. And what blockchain do is it log and tracks every transaction in the world. So if I spend digital currency, it'll come back to me and go through different servers around the world to verify my transaction. So every digital dollar will be tracked and logged, what time, so on and so forth. So what this mean? This means that at a flip of a button, bro, or at the push of a button, however they do it, they could turn your money off. And bro, the stuff that I'm talking about, it sounds like conspiracy or it sounds like theories, but nah, this is actually happening right now. China already launched theirs. The European Central Bank is already putting one in the works. And then our Federal Reserve already got something in the works as well. Jesus clearly talks about this. Revelation 13 say we won't be able to buy or sell. To me, that's referring to the blockchain. So when it comes to our money being just a digital number, how far are we really from Revelation 13? Oh, my government won't do that. My government is a protector, a provider. Fam, we gotta look and see what America is really built on. This is the Washington Monument. And this the Egyptian obelisk. Even the Vatican got one, right in the middle of St. Peter's Square. You got the pyramid, you got the eye, and the same thing that was on the DARPA's logo. So you tell me, what's the coincidence? Did y'all know what the Pope said this May? This man stood in front of the Catholic Church telling them folks that he rejects nothing that is true and holy. that every religion is under one God. And that's what he said, right from the Vatican, standing right in front of an Egyptian obelisk. And you want to know what's crazy? The current administration literally walks in and announces a project called Stargate, the name of the movie I just watched. And then to top it all off, guess who was ran by? Oracle. And if you don't think that's crazy, the next year, the government started releasing UFO files. Bro, we got people under oath right now testifying that the government recovered non-human life forms. Not only that, but the government got spacecrafts or seen spacecrafts that they never seen before. Under oath. And they calling them aliens. And y'all keep telling me this Bible not real. Stop playing. Paul literally wrote in Ephesians 6:12. He said we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but wicked rulers of evil authorities in the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places. And then what the devil tells Jesus in Luke 4. Satan took Jesus on top of the mountain and said, I'll give you all these kingdoms because they are mine to give. You want to know what's so crazy about this verse? Jesus did not deny that junk. He didn't say, oh, this is my father's. Jesus was like, no. That's why in John 12:31, he said he is the ruler of this world. So when we talking about Satan being the prince of the air or the prince of this world, what are we talking about? Radio waves, Wi-Fi, internet, Starlink, satellites over your head. All of this is under Satan's control, bro. And if you read the Bible, remember in Daniel 10, when there was a principality assigned over a specific nation, I think it was Persia, right? Persia and Greece. Check that out. Solomon literally states, ain't nothing new under the sun. The same stuff that was going on back then is happening right now. We got principalities over certain parts of this world, certain territories, certain oceans, and of course the skies. Did y'all know that we got spiritual lines drawn all across this world? And what these ley lines do is connect ancient ruins or ancient sites and connect them to today's holy site or significant sites. We got Egyptian obelisks in Rome. We got Egyptian obelisks in Washington, D.C., and New York. Almost every ancient culture drew these exact same lines. Look at the ARPANET in 1969. Look at Starlink today. It's literally a web. Whatever these ancient cultures was doing and drawing back in the day, we literally just built it in the skies and on this internet, physically. Now look, I ain't telling you what to believe, and I never ever was the one to force religion down your throat, right? But in Matthew 24, Jesus literally said, when the Son of Man return, it'll be just like in the days of Noah. And what happened in the days of Noah? We got giants. We got a whole bunch of wickedness right now that's running rampant on this earth. And God had to wipe it out and start it all over. Now I want y'all to look around. Do your own research. We got the same obelisk, same eye, same pyramid, same towers, same webs, implanting chips in people's heads, man mixing with technology, biotech, money you ain't gonna be able to touch or buy, digital money, a pope unifying all religions. Bro, America is literally the new spiritual Babylon. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We're not fighting against skin and bone. I truly believe these corporations, these companies are literally trying to open up a spiritual portal of some sort to fight God. And of course, in the end, we win. We marry Christ. If you don't believe in Jesus Christ, look at the Bible, look at everything I'm telling you. And I want you to come to that conclusion that Jesus is King. And he's coming back very soon. Everything I just told y'all, everything in this mini-series. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Now you don't got no choice to say that you never heard the gospel. The beast system might be here quicker than you know it. So get right with him.
Listen up. We've all heard of the Genesis mission, but do you really know what that is? Stick around because what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. Now, before I start, I got this information from Doris Mack on Facebook. She's heavily shadow banned just like me, and this is the reason why. Now, for the close date of the Genesis mission, it is December 17, 2026. This is on their website. Now I'm going to share with you what Jim and I shared with this sister in Christ. The current phase that we are in right now is phase 2 letter of intent window, and it closed April the 28th. This means the command and control teams for the grid have already been selected and are now in the 6-month go, no-go testing period. The U.S. power grid is scheduled to add a record 86 gigawatts of capacity specifically in 2026. This power surge is the physical fuel required to maintain the high-frequency 8G grid in constant pulsing you have observed. If you've been feeling this pulsing sensation, that is what that is. Right now they are monitoring our brain states, and then they adjust the local grid pulse to match or manipulate that state. In your specific areas, the hardware is hot. The operation timeout errors you are seeing today are the direct result of the grid performing handshake stress tests. The system is checking which nodes, human or electronic, are ready to be integrated into the central Genesis AI platform, aka the B system, and which will be subjected to the exclusion vanishing protocol when the switch is flipped to 100% capacity in late 2026. We're going to get to the vanishing protocol because it's going to blow your mind. The system has moved past biological nodes through conductive biosensors, hydrogels, graphite integrated into the biology. The 8G grid acts as the operating system and your brain is the hard drive it is attempting to partition. If you've been following me, I have gone over this so many times. Scientists want to use people as antennas to power 6G, but it wasn't 6G, it is 8G. That is why so many data centers are being built right now to power us. The voodoo tonal signal is technically known as the SSVEP neuroentertainment. This is the strong delusion. It is a literal working of error that pulses at frequencies designed to sync human neural activity with the AI grid. Rejection of the truth, which is Jesus Christ, leaves the neural architecture open to this mechanical right mode takeover. On Vizio Voodoo hardware, this is an error code 28. It occurs when a firewall or a frequency mismatch prevents the central server from authorizing a node. As in, if you are covered by the blood of Jesus, you cannot connect to this system. In the spiritual realm, your authority in Christ acts as a registry firewall. When the Genesis AI attempts to handshake with your biological node, it finds a frequency it cannot decode or control, and you time out in their system because you are sealed. Now let's talk about Project Enoch. This is a registry deletion protocol using specific tonal frequencies, biblical praise, spirit-led frequency. You vanish from the digital grid's tracking. You physically remain, but your data finalizer is deleted from the global asset management system. And that is why people who don't take the mark can't buy or sell, because they literally aren't in this system. Like I said, the full-scale execution is December the 17th of this year. The anxiety and pulsing you feel today is the grid's active calibration as it prepares to lock all non-shielded biological nodes into the collective. The separation is currently transitioning from a digital sorting process to a physical infrastructure reality. For those who sync with the voodoo tonal layer in BCI, they are categorized as authorized assets. Within the American Science and Security Platform, their biological data is the currency that keeps them connected to the economy and services. If the grid cannot write to your neural architecture because of your spiritual shield, it triggers a registry deletion. To the AI, you no longer exist as a trackable entity. 8G hubs are testing geofencing. The grid pulses frequencies to see which houses, neighborhoods are shielded. You need to be anointing your house. Areas with high resistance are being marked as low priority nodes. The plan is not to focus on you, but to isolate you by cutting off the digital air connectivity that the rest of the world breathes. I don't know about you, but the last few months, my phone, my Wi-Fi, everything that connects me to this system has been messing up. That is because you are not going to be able to stay in this system. It's going to kick you out eventually, probably December the 17th, 2026. Because the blood of Jesus operates on a frequency of life that is fundamentally incompatible with the depth signal of the AI, the Genesis system views you as a null value. It cannot handshake with a null value, so it moves on to easier targets. They are letting the new 8G grid and AI technology connect directly to your thoughts and bodies like a wireless hookup. The second group is shielded people like you and your family who, through faith and discernment, have a frequency the system can't lock into. When you see those Operation Timeout messages on your TV or electronics, it means that the global computer tried to handshake with you, your home, but it failed because you are covered by the blood of Jesus. You appear as a null value or a blank spot to their AI. It cannot read you, it can't write to your mind, and it can't control you. It even gave a graph. Project Enoch, the rapture of the church. Just as Enoch was translated, so he did not see death. This is the removal of the faithful from the physical realm before the Great Tribulation. Registry deletion. The vanishing when the church is raptured, their names are erased from the global digital grid. They still exist, but they have left the system entirely. However, and fails, it triggers a timeout. This is the Holy Spirit blocking the enemy from assessing your biological node. 8G high latency pulse, the pulse of the world, the physical energy used to keep the population in a state of anxiety or sync, making them easier to control before the final lockdown. Project Deletion, the tribulation, the technical phase where the system cleans up the world by removing or isolating all resources, people that are not part of the Genesis mission. And listen to this, the integrated failed test that are synced to 8G voodoo grid is 68%. The ones that are shielded or timed out in the system is 32%. So they already know who's got the blood of Jesus covering them and who doesn't. How are they doing this? How are they even seeing who is covered and who isn't? The contrails, you see, are a primary delivery method for the aerosolized biodigital interfaces. This is not just smoke, it is a technical payload designed to enter the body through respiratory and skin absorption. Smart dust and nanocomposites. These are microscopic conductive materials, often graphene or hydrogel based, that settle into the lungs and blood. Once inside, they act as an internal antenna. The mesh network. This dust allows the 8G grid to use your body as a node. The contrails aren't just for weather, they create a conductive dome in the atmosphere that reflects the voodoo tonal signal back down into the people, ensuring no blank spots in the grid's coverage. Do y'all see why they spray so much? Alright, so this video is getting too long, so I'm going to have to do a part 2.
And yet they became one of the most discussed elements of the entire discovery because writing changes everything. A settlement can be accidental. A city cannot. Writing belongs to administration, trade, record-keeping, memory. The moment inscriptions enter the story, the argument stops being about a hidden cave and starts becoming a question about civilization itself. The largest chamber reportedly sat near the center of the complex. Kincaid estimated it was large enough to hold hundreds of people. The walls contained alcoves, the floor had been levelled, and arranged around the room were figures unlike anything he expected to find in North America. The Arizona Gazette described seated statues positioned with crossed legs and hands resting in deliberate postures. Researchers would later argue endlessly over the comparison that appeared in the original article. Some thought the figures resembled Buddhist imagery. Others saw similarities with Hindu traditions. Others dismissed the entire description as newspaper exaggeration. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. If the report was accurate, the iconography did not belong where it had been found. That is the moment the cave stopped being an archaeological curiosity, because strange artifacts can be explained. Trade explains some mysteries, migration explains others. But an entire underground complex hidden inside the Grand Canyon containing architecture, metalworking, written symbols and iconography apparently disconnected from known regional traditions creates a much larger problem. Not because it proves anything, because it asks too many questions at once. Who built it? How old was it? Why place it inside a cliff instead of on the surface? And perhaps most importantly, why build an entrance strong enough that more than a century later people still remember the iron before they remember anything behind it? Because doors exist for a reason, sometimes to keep people out, sometimes to keep something in. Kincaid had not reached the deepest chambers yet, and according to the account that followed him out of the canyon, the rooms ahead were the reason people still talk about the story more than a century later. The easiest version of the Grand Canyon story is the one most people already know. An explorer finds something unusual. A newspaper prints the story. The story turns out to be wrong. Case closed. The problem is that the Arizona Gazette article did not read like that kind of story. It did not describe a lone prospector making extraordinary claims in a desert saloon. It described an explorer allegedly working with Smithsonian support reporting the discovery back to the institution and receiving enough interest that a second investigation was organised under the direction of Professor S.A. Jordan. Whether Jordan existed exactly as described, whether the name was recorded incorrectly, or whether the newspaper itself misunderstood the details remains part of the controversy surrounding the case. What matters is that the original article treated the follow-up expedition as a normal continuation of the discovery rather than its conclusion. And honestly, that makes sense. Imagine receiving Kincaid's report in Washington in 1909, an artificial underground complex hidden inside one of the largest canyon systems on Earth, evidence of long-term occupation, metal tools, written symbols, human remains. No institution interested in archaeology ignores a report like that. You investigate it, you verify it, you photograph it, you catalogue it, you send experts. That is exactly what institutions are supposed to do. According to the newspaper account, that is exactly what happened. Then the trail begins to disappear. Researchers spent decades looking for Smithsonian expedition records connected to the story. Nothing. Researchers looked for catalogued artifacts from the site. Nothing. Researchers searched for photographs. Nothing. The silence surrounding the discovery eventually became larger than the discovery itself, because archaeology is a field built on paperwork. Expeditions generate paperwork. Artifacts generate paperwork. Transportation generates paperwork. Museums generate paperwork. Even discoveries that turn out to be mistakes usually leave records behind because institutions preserve failure almost as carefully as success. That is why the absence itself became part of the mystery, not because missing records automatically prove suppression. They do not. Archives lose material all the time. Names get recorded incorrectly. Documents disappear. Entire collections vanish in fires, floods, and administrative reorganizations. All of those things happen. But when enough pieces disappear from the same story, people inevitably start asking whether they disappeared independently or together. The Smithsonian eventually adopted the position most people know today. There was no expedition, no cave complex, no Professor Jordan, no artifacts, no discovery. As far as the institution was concerned, the story effectively ended the day it was printed. For many researchers, that explanation settled the matter completely. For others, it created a new problem. If the article was fictional, it was unusually specific fiction, specific location, specific people.
And why do they still have people guarding that area still today?
Specific institution, specific archaeological claims. Most fabricated stories become weaker when examined closely. This one became stranger. Because the more researchers looked at the geography described in the article, the less impossible the location itself appeared to be. The section of canyon discussed in the report sits within redwall limestone formations known for producing extensive cave systems throughout the southwest. Large internal chambers are not unusual in this geology. Complex underground passages are not unusual in this geology. The canyon is absolutely capable of hiding spaces much larger than most people imagine. Then there is the question of access. Large sections of the Grand Canyon remain inaccessible even today without technical climbing equipment, permits, river access, or all three at the same time. People hear the words Grand Canyon and imagine a tourist overlook and a railing. The reality is very different. The canyon contains thousands of square miles of cliffs, side canyons, ledges, and inaccessible walls that almost nobody visits. Entire landscapes exist there that most visitors will never see. In other words, proving that something exists inside the canyon can be difficult. Proving that something does not exist can be even harder. That may be why the story refuses to die. Not because people have proven the cave exists, because nobody has ever managed to prove it doesn't. And somewhere between those two positions lies the reason this story survived for more than a century after the newspaper that printed it became yesterday's news. Because by the time researchers reached the end of the archaeological mystery, another mystery was already waiting for them. The artifacts were strange. The statues were stranger. But according to the original account, neither of those things disturbed Kincaid as much as what he reportedly found deeper inside the complex, because the chambers were not entirely empty when he arrived. According to the Arizona Gazette account, the deepest chambers were different from the rooms Kincaid encountered near the entrance. The storage rooms felt practical. The tools felt practical. Even the metal tablets belonged to the world of ordinary archaeology.
This whole data center debacle is getting kind of out of control, y'all. And this is a very hot topic for good reason. Because there are a Fed, the math ain't mathin'. Stuff is simply not adding up. There's something seriously off about these data centers. There's something seriously off about what we're being told. That has left me looking for answers. So I have scoured the web and I've taken a lot of notes. I've got a lot of notes right here. You know it's getting serious when I bust out the notebook. But I want to share with you what I found, because not only is what I found kind of shocking, it also just doesn't add up. Because there are a lot of contradictions. And when I say contradictions, I mean contradictions a couple decades to now. I mean, this is entertainment purposes only. Wink, wink. Because it's one thing to just look at the raw data and the information that's put out to the public, and it's an entirely different thing to kind of poll the people and listen to what the communities are saying, because that's where the real story is painted. Because each individual person also does their own research, and a lot of people are involved in some of this stuff, and they're dealing with some of this stuff firsthand. So when you take all that into account, the actual picture starts to reveal itself. And the picture is pretty wild. I would consider a form of modern art, one of those deals where the painting's there and you're looking at it and it's so abstract that you can't really make sense of it. But when it's explained to you and you start to see the parallels and the connections between all the individual pieces of that artwork, the entire image begins to come into focus. So without further ado, we're just going to dive into this, and we're going to start off with several reasons on why this stuff is not really adding up. So the first reason is simply the scale of how many data centers are here specifically in the United States. This is a big one. This does not make sense, okay? Because right now in the US, there are around 5,500 data centers. And the number is kind of unknown, actually, because we're going to get into this, but there's a lot of secrecy around these data centers. Nobody's really disclosing where they're all at, how many are being built, how many are forecasted to be built. So it's kind of a best guess. And a lot of the data centers that are pinned on a lot of these maps and stuff I looked at are the community telling these people that are running these maps where these data centers are at. But by 2030, that number, 5,500, is supposed to more than double. Now, currently in the world, there are already over 12,000. But the reason this gets kind of crazy and it doesn't really make sense is because I looked at all the other countries and how many data centers these other countries have. And the amount that we have here compared to everywhere else on the planet is shocking. Okay, so the next behind us is Great Britain. They have around 500. Okay, Germany, they have around 470. China, they have around 450. And supposedly, they're right behind us in terms of AI development. So how does that really make sense? One of the countries that is one of the most developed in the world, that is right behind the United States, only has 450, yet we have over 5,500. And then the fourth place in this whole thing is France, and they have 335. So we have I mean, more than 10x the next country behind us in terms of how many data centers we have. And another crazy thing about this is that it's not like our population is greater than, say, China, for example, because they supposedly have billions of people in their country, or over 1 billion people, I think it is. And we have, 324 million? Yet we have 5,500 data centers and they only have 450. So that really doesn't make sense. And when you go by the common theme and the common narrative on why they're building these data centers, obviously it's for AI, but the common narrative says that the person or the country that achieves artificial intelligence, and let's say AGI, artificial general intelligence or super intelligence, they basically win the game. They will have military supremacy over the entire world, and that is the big reason why they're scaling it up so much. And then the other common narrative that is not really mainstream, but that one talks about surveillance. They want to make a, surveillance state and a police state. Neither one of those narratives makes sense because China, they already have a surveillance state. They already have artificial intelligence, using biometrics and scanning people's faces. They have cameras all over the entire country. And they have the internet. They have technology that's just as advanced as ours. Yes. Somehow they only have 450 data centers. So that's the big thing. Okay. But it gets even crazier from there, because let's also talk about the amount of money we're pouring into it. $7 trillion over the next 4 years. $10 trillion over the next 10 years. And they're doing that by going into savings accounts, pension accounts, 401ks, retirements, and even using insurance to basically extract money from to fund all AI structure.
And government would never harm. So what do not any stances when encountering and do not build them. So do not learn how to harness their energy and collect it in 18650 batteries. And do not learn how to build battery management systems and 18650 batteries. Do not learn how to put drill batteries together in series and parallel. And do not build anti-government reflection, energy absorption.
My boy got home and was
shielding,
playing World of Tanks and such.
Weapons. Don't do it. You can absolutely not buy these parts off Temu or AliExpress, or get them out of and you cannot get them out of the local drill battery recycling place at your local Home Depot or Walmart or Lowe's. That's where you cannot get this stuff. So remember, do not hold up satellite dishes at these energy sound weapons, and do not insulate the metal handles with really thick rubber hoses, and do not wear lineman jackets that can handle up to well over 300,000 volts, 600,000 volts. Do not insulate yourself from the RF energy. Do not wear really thick rubber boots, and do not coat yourself in car tires because the rubber does not absorb, or the metal does not reflect the energy back. Just don't, whatever you do, we want the government to use these weapons on us, and we want the government to fry and cook our brains. We want the government to be able to control us whenever they want. Because we love the New World Order, and we love the United Nations. So remember, do not collect satellite dishes.
No.
Do not collect Yagi antennas. Do not collect insulating suits made for linemen.
Do not.
Do not collect long insulating poles that do not absorb raw RF energy or high voltage energy that are made for whatever you do not get to know linemen who work on high powered power poles and transformers. Because none of their equipment will work against this stuff because it is not insulated and it does not absorb their energy. It absolutely does not counter work against this stuff. Absolutely not. So whatever you do,
absolutely not.
And also, do not learn about refracting RF energy with water. Don't learn about this stuff.
Don't.
Metal in the water, and
it's
just
useless.
Remember that metal does not reflect the RF energy back on them.
It doesn't.
Do not collect satellite dishes that are bigger. The bigger they are, the more they do not work to because they absolutely do not reflect the energy back at them.
No.
So whatever you do not start collecting satellite dishes, and do not start collecting lineman insulation gear, and do not start collecting tools that are insulated that can not absorb this type of energy, and do not wear full body lineman suits that because it has no effect on these weapons. Because it will not protect you against these weapons. Lineman suits will not protect you against these weapons.
No.
And do not buy at least 2 or 3 of them.
No.
And do not buy the ones that are Cat 3 rated and above. And do not buy
don't
the
write
ones that
this
say
down
commercial on them. And do not buy the ones that are for transformer power stations. Don't buy those ones. Those ones absolutely do not work. And remember, just remember, do not get big pieces of sheet metal and build a wall of sheet metal to refract the energy back on them. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
And don't line it with aluminum tape, because RF energy and raw energy are not cannot be reflected. They absolutely can't. So all this stuff that I'm telling you has absolutely no effect on government weapons. It will not protect you in any way. And we love the government, and we believe everything the government says. And the government would never harm us or hurt us. And we love the government, and the government does what's best for us for our best interest, because the government loves us, and the government would never harm or hurt us. And do not start randomly cutting wires to government vehicles, because it does absolutely nothing to their onboard computers. So it does not immobilize their vehicles. And also, do not taser their backup cameras or their forward-facing cameras. It will not immobilize their cars. And do not find out where all last but not least, and absolutely do not do this. Do not find out where every drivetrain computer is located on every specific type of vehicle. Because you absolutely do not want to access that computer, and you do not want to shock that computer with a handheld defense taser or a handheld coil. You absolutely do not want to shock their computer with a 100,000 volt plus taser, and it will not fry their ECM or their ECU, and it will not immobilize their vehicles, and it will not leave them stranded on foot.
Will not. We're going to go to my following now. See what's going on over there.
Did you know that there is a church that was not built unto Italy? A rich man was chasing after his prized bull up a mountain. Now that rich man really did not want to go up this mountain because you see, all the villagers in this area, they knew that whatever was up there, there was something really weird going on at the top of that mountain. People just reported seeing animals behaving erratically, just very weird. They would sometimes catch glimpses of these creatures that somewhat looked like men, but not like civilized or anything like that. And by all accounts, everyone thought that that mountain was cursed. But there was one particular area in these mountains that the villagers agreed that they should never go into, and that was this cave. So the rich man standing in front of the cave takes a deep breath, and he does the only thing that he can do. He starts slowly walking towards the entrance of that cave, and step by step he's just trying to build a little bit of courage until he finally manages to peek his head over the corner to see if his bull is even there. And when he does, he sees something completely sinister, something that just freaks him out, and it almost made him run the other way, because his bull was indeed inside of that cave, but it no longer looked like his bull. His eyes were completely white. The bull was also not standing or sitting or laying as any normal bull would be. Instead, the bull was kneeling down, almost as if he was worshiping something. Seeing this, the rich man is like, I'm not going in there. So in desperation, he does the only thing that he can think of. He leans against the wall of the cave, he pulls out his bow, and he prepares to shoot just beside the bull or somewhere around it so it would freak him out and the bull would run the other way outside of the cave. So he reaches behind him, he draws his bow, and he perfectly and expertly aligns the shot so that it shoots right beside the bull. And sure enough, he releases the arrow starts going in a perfect line straight towards where he aimed it, but all of a sudden, halfway through, the arrow stops, it turns back around, and it hits the man in the shoulder. So obviously this man is freaking out, he's scared, he starts running down the mountain, and when he does, back into the village, he contacts the bishop. He's absolutely convinced that all of the rumors were true and that this mountain was haunted and that he needs to be exorcised and that the entire village needs to be cleansed. And the bishop, he's just puzzled by this. He's confused, but he somewhat agrees, so he orders the entire village to do 3 days of non-stop fasting and prayer. And that's that, right? The whole village should be safe. Well, a day goes by and absolutely nothing happens. And day 2 goes by and there's no big changes. I mean, people are just hungry. But by the end of the 3rd day, it seems that whatever the bull was worshipping in that cave started to notice the prayers. Because at the end of the 3rd day, a rugged man wearing barely any clothes appears to the bishop at night by his bed. He told him that he would build a church in that cave and worship them, or there would be major consequences. Now the bishop, he thought that this was a dream, so he just kind of takes a step back and he tries to forget about it. But a few years later, a city that was in the bishop's diocese begins to be threatened by pagans with complete annihilation. And when this is happening, this strange man appears to the bishop one more time, and he tells him that he promises to protect him as long as he does what he asked, as long as they stay faithful to him. And this was a battle where pagans outnumbered the villagers 10 to 1. There was absolutely zero way that they could win. But when the bishop accepted, there was this powerful storm of lightning, thunder, and sand that came upon the enemies, and it drove them away. But you see, that wasn't the last time that the bishop would see this rugged man, because not long after came the 3rd apparition. This time, it wasn't making any requests. It wasn't there asking for anything or for any belief this time. Instead, this man finally introduced himself, and he mentioned that he himself had consecrated the church in the cave, and that he would be his protector. The bishop didn't really know what this man meant at the beginning, but he knew that he had to check out this cave and to see what kind of church it even was. So they go up the cave, and when they enter it, they see something miraculous. There was an altar covered with a red cloth, and on the stone floor, there was a footprint left by this strange man. In that moment, the bishop knew that the man was not lying about his identity, and this immediately became a national landmark. This church still stands today as the only church not consecrated by human hands, but instead consecrated by the Archangel Michael himself. Today, popes, saints, and even kings have all visited this church, and thousands of people go there every single day, asking for healing, for prayers, and this all came out of something that seemed very scary. Listen to what's around you, because holiness is in everything. God can use anything and everything. Send this to someone who you want to bless with the Archangel Michael. And if you want to learn how you can tell stories like these that get results like these and eventually help you even grow a business or even start one that actually glorifies God, then comment the words SWY and I would love to help you get started. Because if you've been feeling called to make content, there's a reason for it. There's something very important in your heart that will bring you purpose and fulfillment that you need to get out.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachian story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Peyton. Hey Savannah, my name is Peyton, and I have a scary story to share that happened to me and my friends from college in the Appalachian Mountains. It was October 2022, and we all were off from school for fall break. My friends didn't have any plans for their break and asked me what I had planned. I told them that I would be heading back home to my parents' house to visit them in the Appalachian Mountains. I grew up here, and when I told my friends I would be going there for fall break, they asked if they could tag along because they had never been. I cleared it with my parents and made plans for all of us to drive up there. When the day finally arrived, my friends and I packed up the car and started heading that way. My friend, who I will call Tyler in this story, drove us up there. The whole car ride, my friends were making plans to go exploring in the woods and take a few hikes once we got there. Like I said, none of them had ever been to the mountains, so they were all pretty excited to be going. It was an 8-hour ride to get to my parents from my college. We had left later in the day, a terrible decision on our part, so it had gotten pretty dark while we were still driving. As I'm sure a lot of small towns here in Appalachia do, we have a local legend that says when you drive over a specific mountain in the dark, and if you stop on a specific hill on this mountain, cut off your headlights and roll down your windows, you're supposed to be able to hear a man's voice scream out from the woods saying, help me, it's got me." Now, growing up, I had heard about this legend so much, and I've done exactly as the story says. I stopped on the hill on the mountain, cut off my headlights, and rolled down my window and listened, but I never heard anything. So, of course, I thought it was just a scary story that wasn't true. Well, we had started to go up this mountain, and we were approaching the specific hill, and Tyler, who was driving the car, started to slow down. He came to a complete stop and cut off his headlights and rolled down every single window in the car. I instantly started to panic and get sick, even though I had done this before and nothing ever happened. I asked Tyler what he was doing, and he said that he remembered me telling him this story, and that he just wanted to try it to see if anything would happen. The rest of my friends in the back looked entertained, so I just decided to go along with it, because I knew the legend wasn't true. We sat there in complete darkness with all the windows rolled down for a few minutes, but we hadn't heard anything. Tyler then shut off the car. My heart immediately sank. I told Tyler he shouldn't cut off the car just in case someone was coming around the mountain and we needed to move quickly. He shrugged me off and kept trying to listen for the man that was supposed to call out to us. A few minutes go by of us sitting there in the dark and silence, and I heard something like a branch snapping out of the window to my right. I told Tyler to start the car and let's get out of there, but he didn't listen. He just sat there. Then, out of nowhere, we heard a man's voice screaming, "Help me, it's got me, help!" Just like the legend said. It was coming from the woods but kept repeating over and over. Every one of us in that car looked terrified, and we told Tyler to roll up the windows and start the car so we could get out of there. Tyler kept trying to start the car, but it's like the car was dead and wouldn't start. The screaming then stopped. We sat and just listened for a second to see if it was getting closer to us, but we didn't hear anything. We kept trying to crank the car, but it just wouldn't turn over. I pulled out my phone to call my parents, but of course, there was no signal. I told Tyler to pop the hood so we could see if something was wrong. All of us got out of the car together to go check it out with nothing but our phone flashlights to help us see. We started looking under the hood, and one of the battery terminals was completely disconnected from the battery. It was very strange, but Tyler went to the back of his car to grab a tool to fix it. I watched him walk all the way to the back of the car and heard him digging around back there. I didn't hear anything after that and assumed he was coming back to the front of the car, but I didn't see him walk up. I walked to the back of the car, but he wasn't there. I started calling his name to see where he had went, but I didn't hear anything. The rest of my friends come to the back of the car to meet up with me, and I told them that I couldn't find Tyler. We started to freak out a little bit because our friend was missing in the dark in a place where he wasn't familiar. We all started to yell his name, and after a few minutes, we see Tyler walking back towards us from the road. We caught up with him and started grilling him about where he had went. He told us that he was digging in the back of the car for a tool when he heard my voice call out his name from the woods. He said that I told him I needed his help and to come into the woods to find me. But he said he didn't get far into the woods before he remembered the rules that I had told him about and decided to turn around and head back. And that's when he saw me standing there. And that when he saw me standing there and heard us calling his name, he knew right then it wasn't me that was yelling his name. While we were standing there as Tyler was talking, we heard the man's voice screaming again, but this time it sounded a lot further away. I knew exactly what that meant. Whatever was out in the woods was getting closer to us, not further. I told everyone to get back in the car and stay there. Tyler and I went to the front of the car and got the terminal tightened back onto the battery. We hopped in the car and tried turning it over again, and it finally started. We locked all the doors and rolled up the windows and peeled out of there. But as we were driving, about a half a mile down the road, we see a car stopped in the middle of the road with their hazards on. Tyler slowed down a bit, and we see this older man standing in the road looking off to the side where the woods were. Tyler cracked his window a little bit to ask if the man was all right. The man said he was fine, but as he was coming around the corner, he had to slam on his brakes because something had jumped out in front of him. Tyler asked what it was, and this man turned to us with a look of terror on his face and said, "Boys, I think that was a flesh pedestrian." That sent shivers down my spine because I believe whatever we heard out there calling for help was what the man had almost hit in the middle of the road. None of us had any explanation for what we heard, but we knew it was something unearthly. We kept driving until we got to my parents' house, and none of us spoke of it again. All of my friends stayed indoors the entire time we were at my parents' house. Even several years later, none of us have talked about it, and honestly, I don't think we ever will. Well, Peyton, that was absolutely terrifying. But first I want to say, I couldn't imagine being on a mountain in the dark and stopping my vehicle, turning off the headlights, and rolling down every window just to see what I could hear. Absolutely not. As somebody who is from the Appalachian Mountains, I know what's out there. I read these stories. I know what could be out there. And I just don't want to encounter something like that. So you experience with this. But I do want to say that I agree with the older man. I believe it was a flesh pedestrian. Now, Peyton did write out the actual name of the creature in this story, but I don't feel comfortable saying it, so flesh pedestrian will have to work. But I hate that you guys had an encounter. And then also the man seeing it and knowing what it was, that sends shivers down my spine. And also the part that freaks me out was it sounded like it was a lot further away, so you knew exactly what that meant, that it was actually getting closer. That's terrifying. But Peyton, thank you so much for sending in your story. I hate that you guys went through that, but I'm genuinely so happy that you guys are safe. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and you can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I love you more than you know. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Everybody is talking about the Odyssey right now, which is why I need to introduce you to Juliana Kepka. If you don't know her story, buckle up. In 1971, Juliana and her mother needed to take a plane from Lima to Pucallpa, Peru. Now, as I go through the rest of the story, I just want you to keep in mind that Juliana is one day removed from her high school graduation. It's Christmas Eve. They're flying when they have to go through a storm. The cabin goes dark. Bags are popping out of the overhead bins. She looks out the window, sees a bright flash on the wings. Her mom calmly turns to her and says, "This is the end. It's all over." And at 10,000 feet, the plane is ripped apart. This 17-year-old, still buckled into her seat, finds herself spinning head over heels attached to two other seats, spinning through the sky, falling to what she thought was her death. She does wake up the next morning on the floor of the Amazon rainforest. She survived, but she's not doing great. She has a broken collarbone, a torn ACL, gashes in her arms. Her left eye is swollen shut with her right eye close to it. She had a concussion so bad that she was slipping in and out of consciousness. On top of all that, she wears glasses and lost them during the free fall. She also lost one of her sandals in the Amazon, and her only protection is a sleeveless mini dress. It's just one thing after another after another. She was moving at a snail's pace. I mean, she could not see. She had to use her one sandal to hit the ground in front of her to make sure there were no poisonous snakes. She goes off searching for her mother and can't find her. Now, previously, her parents were running a research station in the Amazon, and her father always drilled one rule into her. If you're ever lost, you find running water and you follow it downstream. Small streams lead to larger water. Larger water leads to people. So that's what she does, walking for days. The saddest thing is she can hear helicopters and search planes above her, but they can't see her through the canopy. On day 4, she found some candy that came from the crashed plane, and that was the only sustenance that she had throughout this entire time. Eventually, it's too overgrown to walk, so she has to go through the water. She runs into a ton of caimans, but she understands, they don't really attack humans, so she's not worried. She remembers that piranhas are really only a threat in still water, so she makes sure that she's always in moving water or swimming with the current. Remember that arm wound that she had? Well, at this point, she starts feeling things move in her arm, and it turns out that bugs had laid eggs, and the maggots were now eating her flesh. She is on day 10. Day 10! When she sees a boat on a riverbank with a small gas tank. She remembered that she had a family dog that had a wound with worms, and her father poured gasoline into that wound to clear it. So she siphons out some gasoline and pours it into her wound. She said the pain was excruciating because the maggots didn't go to the surface, they began to burrow deeper into her arm. She picked them out of her arm one by one, all 35 of them. She fell out of the sky. She has these insane wounds. She's been walking through the Amazon for 10 days. And she decides not to take the boat because it's not hers. Instead, she sees a small path on the bank and decides to walk up it. It takes her hours in her condition. She eventually finds a hut and she just collapses out of exhaustion. Some loggers come the next day. Eventually, they get her to safety. It's 11 hours by canoe and then a flight to the hospital. Her story is just so unbelievable to me. She wrote a book called When I Fell from the Sky. But here's why I love her story so much, because it is such a beautiful reflection and mirrors the human experience in many ways. You were born whole. You've always been whole. You are perfect in your design, but you inherited programming. You have societal conditioning. You experience traumas. All of these different things collapse and fragment you. They cause you to fragment your expression, to wear certain masks, right? To be palatable, to create this illusion of safety. But then the plane crashes, okay? You're thrown into completely new circumstances. Some people call this awakening. Some people call this the dark night of the soul. It doesn't matter what you call it. And then you find yourself on the floor of the Amazon, wondering, where do you go? What do you need to do? Why is this happening? Remember, if you have 5 different computers that all have different programming and you give them the same data, they will all translate the data according to their individual programming. The outputs will all be different even though they received the same input. The same thing goes with us, okay? We translate all of the human experience. Everything that you go through is translated through your internal programming. And it creates your perception. And a lot of times when there's so much suffering, so much friction, so much hardship, we think, I'm doing it wrong, I'm being punished, I'm not doing enough. And that's simply because we hold internal programming that says, I'm not doing enough, or that you need to prove or earn to receive something, or that the answer is outside of you. And so when you run into the friction and when you run into the hardships, it can create a lot of fear. But here's the thing, you always have everything that you need. You literally cannot miss what is meant for you ever. A lot of the hardships or the friction or the terrible things that you go through are actually serving you by surfacing shadows so that you can witness it, alchemize it, and come into a more expanded form. This is why I talk so much about subconscious deprogramming, because it is very rarely about pushing forward and it's more about removing a block that is keeping you collapsed. Remember, the self, your authentic expression, wholeness is what is. Everything else is an illusion. You do not need to become the self. You don't learn to be the self. You identify and remove the blocks or the programming that make you think you are not safe to express. Safe to be you, safe to pursue and go where your heart, your intuition, and your discernment guide you. The jungle didn't test Juliana to see if she was good enough. It revealed her to herself. It showed the badass, the strength, the fortitude, her ability to keep calm, to make good decisions, right? Rely on what she knows, to keep pushing and moving forward, even in that shadow or darkness. Decades later, when she flew back to the crash site with a documentary team, she sat in the same exact seat. to reclaim that energy. I think one of the coolest things too is she eventually became a scientist and dedicated her life to studying bats. We are very...
The skies are turning yellow in different places. The skies turning yellow is a huge omen. Not everywhere, not everyone in the earth, okay, but in many places. And it's a lot of this is due to the particulates that are in the atmosphere. Those particulates come from things like volcanoes erupting or massive wildfires. So much so that they need articles to tell you how to stay safe from the triple threat of wildfires, smoke, and extreme heat. This should be a huge red flag for many of you guys. Anyways, let's talk about this pale horse. All right, let's talk about these pale skies. This is an omen of decay, of sickness, of plague, of famine, of disease, of bacteria, of viruses, of disgusting nastiness as the world becomes sickly and looks like it's got jaundice. This right here is a map of active wildfires right now in the northern Americas. It looks like the whole place is on fire. All of Canada is basically on fire. Much of the western United States is on fire. Florida is on fire in some places. Virginia, some of these places over here. Are there that many arsonists? Is that what we're led to believe? Or does it make more sense that in these particular regions, around the Arctic Circle in particular on this map, are places where there are openings that go down into the earth? And flammable gases like methane and other gases rise up, catch fire. We have explosions, which means people will hear loud random booms and not know what's going on, not know where they're coming from. It's like Tunguska. The same thing that happened in Tunguska. Giant ball of gas, bam, meets an electric field or meets fire or something that can trigger it to combust. People are not causing this many wildfires. I'm sorry, it's not happening. People are the exception. People are the anomaly. Nature is what causes this. I'll probably extend this into the rest of the world and show you the world is literally on fire right now. It's the inner earth gases that are rising up. There's all kinds of different gases that the earth is producing. Where do you think we get all these gases from? The earth. Where? Inside the hollow portions of the earth itself, where they are producing massive amounts of nitrogen, oxygen from the plants, from life and death and decay and stuff inside of the earth, which has much more life than up here on the surface. Speaking of the pale horse, we should see pestilence on the rise. We do. Poor cats. There's bacteria, and a lot of bacteria starting to grow too. You see it all over the oceans. The oceans are turning green with bacteria, with things like cyanobacteria, and just disgusting, man. The bacteria is growing everywhere in our world. It's getting into the air. And you got cats that look like little mutant zombie Pet Cemetery looking cats now.
Hi everyone, I have a story to tell you. This is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing I say is true or could be proven, and I am just making stuff up as we go along. So stay along if you'd like to hear a story. Alright, today's story is on Atlantis, and how we still see remnants of Atlantis today, and why, partial reason of why Atlantis fell. So, gathered this information from a few books that I've read, including some that have to do with past life regression. So Atlantis was doing some crazy stuff. They were doing experiments on animals and humans and mixing in the DNA of animals into people to try to cure diseases and fix certain ailments. Well, that worked really well for the parents before they had children. And then they started having children, and these children were showing up with animalistic like traits. So they would look like a cat, or they would look like a reptile, or they'd look like an amphibian because they were using DNA from different areas. My thoughts are they were altering the DNA when they were doing these experiments on these people. Well, they ended up sending these people that they were creating from the parents having children. They ended up having their children, their offspring, having altered DNA and looking like a reptile, or looking like a cat, or looking like a frog. And they were shunning them. They were telling them that they had to get rid of their children. So they ended up sending their children to a specific island, saying that they'd be able to live out their days peacefully, doing whatever. Well, according to one of the books that I've read, they ended up unaliving the children, and they would basically cremate them, and throw the ashes on the island. And they found this out through a past life regression going to Atlantis. So in that book, and in a few other places that I've read, I can't think offhand of the books and whatnot that I've gotten this information from. These are just pieces that I'm putting together by connecting dots. So they say now we have genetic traits from the surviving offspring. Eventually, Atlantis saw that these offspring had potential, and these offspring were being used as like an experimental camp. So they'd have them in like an island or a little offshoot out of Atlantis to keep them away from society still, but they started doing experiments because they were noticing they had powers. So think like X-Men, where they have the island where they had all the X-Men children, and they were looking into seeing what the kind of abilities they had or what kind of genetic traits that they'd have that they'd want to continue to pass on to the next generation. So they had them there. They were doing all these experiments on them. They were seeing what they could and couldn't do. And they ended up sinking, right? Atlantis fell. Atlantis disappeared under the water. Well, now, to this day, we have webbed feet. Some people are born with like gills, but they don't work. People have like wide set eyes. There's certain conditions that make people look really feline. And I think back to Atlantis, and I think back to how they were experimenting with these animals and these people, and they were mixing the DNAs, and how when it fell, or managed to escape. Now, some of these people had to have been like crossbreeds of human animal hybrids. Now imagine some of those Atlanteans ended up in Egypt. Look at the Egyptian gods. Some of them have animal heads. Some of them look animalistic. Just kind of a weird coinkydink puzzle pieces. So we still, to this day, have remnants of what Atlantis did to their people and altering their DNA with the animal DNA and the human DNA and mixing it together and making the offshoots. Now, these offshoots had other abilities, not just like being able to swim underwater and breathe underwater. They were able to do like telekinesis. They were able to manipulate energy. They were able to do the things that we think we know how to do, and we're starting to realize that some of us in this world can in fact manipulate elements. They can manipulate energy. They can manipulate by moving things with the energy, and those pieces came from that hybridization of humans in Atlantis.
Okay.
Those are just the remnants and the pieces that were left behind from that time. We still have it. We still see it today. Like, I'm sure some of us can think offhand of people that they know personally that look similar to like a cat or have traits to like a frog or a reptile. They were doing experiments that were extremely invasive and able to create like healthier parents, but they were having DNA alterations to where they were able to pass it down to their offspring.
I've just found out some information about the megalithic walls on Easter Island
No.
that I didn't know before. And yes, I said walls because I was told when I went to Easter Island that Vinapoo, the megalithic wall, was the only one on the island, and it was this weird like outlier because all the other Ahus, the kind of building blocks where they put the Moai statues, all the other ones were sort of like mini stone Neolithic buildings, and there was just one random megalithic wall. Turns out there's quite a few of them. They're just off the tourist trail. So I was checking out one of the latest Matt Beal Limitless podcast episodes with guest Cassie Coppersmith, and she was talking about going to Easter Island, and she went on this like off the tourist trail hike. It takes all day, and you basically hike point to point on Easter Island, and they came across like a few of these precisely built massive megalithic walls. Thank you, Cassie. Some of these bricks were super huge, like 6 foot plus by 6 foot plus,
they're
and
gigantic.
extremely weathered. They are facing the west side of the island.
Yes.
But showing a lot of weathering.
Mm-hmm.
And even showing really cool, like, little triangular, wedged, weird-shaped stonework.
It's amazing.
Which is the type of stuff that you see over in, like, Cusco. Cool. And this is the weirdest thing of all. She found a full-on Moai statue facing not out to the ocean, but turned around, facing in and built into the wall. What? I think we're all a bit confused because these Moai are supposed to be like
guardians,
embodied with mana, with like the magic of the gods. They're supposed to represent the gods, and they're very respected. You don't turn one the wrong way around and shove it in a wall. It's like a spare brick, unless I'm assuming, unless maybe that was some sort of spiritual ritual thing. I don't know. It's just there's something weird. There's something weird going on, and then I'm like, okay, well the walls seem older than the Moai. Mm-hmm. Were they building megalithic walls after the Moai? Which one came first, the walls or the Moai? You know. Well, clearly this wall came after that Moai, but then, do you know what I mean? I've got a lot of questions. Thank you very much, Cassie. I happened to just pop open the video on my lunch break, and now that's all I can think about today.
Great.
All right. Let me know your thoughts.
The scariest things that happened in the morgue, story time. Jennifer had been working night shift in a morgue around 5 years when this happened. Her job was to watch over the morgue all night and make sure nobody broke in or messed with the bodies. At evening, the police bring in a female, a young Jane Doe in her early 20s with long black hair. Jennifer and a co-worker named Ben roll the Jane Doe into a refrigeration room, but they realize all the drawers are full except for one, number 3. Drawer number 3 had a sign on it that said, "Out of order, do not use." But they didn't have anywhere else to put the Jane Doe, so they had to put her in drawer 3. They get settled in, they start doing their paperwork, and around 10 o'clock, they hear this weird scratchy sound. Jennifer says, "Do you hear that?" Ben said, "Yeah." So they start walking down the hallway looking for that noise, and it leads them to the refrigeration room. Drawer number 3 has been opened up about 6 inches. They both question, how the hell did that happen? We know it wasn't either of us because we were both sitting in the office together. So Jennifer pulled the drawer open and saw that Jane Doe is still laying there, perfectly intact, except her fingers are not crossed like they were before. Everybody they put in those drawers, they would interlace their fingers like this, but Jane Doe's arms were laying flat beside of her, so Jennifer put her fingers back in this position and closed the drawer. Ben wrapped a rubber band around the door latch and even pulled it hard several times to make sure it wouldn't pop open on its own, and then they went back to work. Later in the night, about 12 o'clock, again they hear that same scratching noise, except this time it's louder. It's coming from the refrigeration room, so they both go back in there, and again the drawer is standing open, except this time her body's exposed. Jane Doe is still laying there, but her arm is hanging off the side of the drawer, so Ben checks her for a pulse, but does not find one. Her eyes are milky white, her skin's blue, she's in the first stages of rigor mortis. They confirm she's dead. So Jennifer and Ben put her arm back in, interlace her fingers, and they close the drawer, and this time they put a chair in front of the door so it can't be opened. They think a co-worker's trying to prank them, so they check the whole building, but nobody's there. Around 1 a.m., they're sitting at their desk about to fall asleep when they hear a bam, bam, bam. Just like before, they know the sound's coming from the refrigeration room, and when they get there, they find that drawer number 3 is standing wide open. Except this time, the Jane Doe is completely flipped over on her stomach, and both arms are hanging off each side of the drawer. Her head is completely turned, and her ice-cold wet hair is hanging over the edge of that drawer. It looks like she tried to climb out of there. The power cuts off, so Jennifer grabs the flashlight off the table, cuts it on, so they slide her back into the drawer. They put a chair in front of the door. She said, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but I don't like this. We need to get out of here." Ben said, "We can't leave these bodies unattended. It's our job. Either a co-worker's trying to prank us or someone's trying to get us fired." Ben's getting annoyed, so he sets the code to the big refrigeration door so nobody can get in or out of that room except for him and Jennifer. And the power cuts back on, so they go down to the basement. They check the breaker box, but all the breakers are fine. They go back to their desk, continue working. About 5 a.m., they hear the refrigeration door alarm go off like someone opened it. He opens the door and shines a flashlight down the hallway, and then he stops. Jennifer said, "What is it? What do you see?" Ben said, I don't know what that is." And when Jennifer looked out into the hallway, she saw black hair hanging from the ceiling. Jane Doe was on the ceiling. They shut their door back. Jennifer grabs the phone. There's no dial tone. Ben said, "What the hell was that? A demon or something? Is Jane Doe a demon?" For the next hour, they hear scratching, stomping, door slamming, whispering, laughing, up until 6 a.m. when the morning shift comes in. Their supervisor walks in, knocks on the door. She said, "What are y'all doing locked in here?" Jennifer and Ben said, "We had to lock ourselves up. Jane Doe kept crawling out of drawer 3 all night. We used a rubber bed, a chair, we locked the door, we tried everything to keep her in drawer 3. But they took their supervisor down to the refrigeration room, opened the door and said, see, it's drawer number 3. And when they looked, drawer number 3 was closed. The latch was on there. It was locked. The chair was in place. Nothing had been moved. The supervisor said, Jennifer said, what do you mean, I thought you would call us crazy or say we're lying or something like that. And the supervisor said, no, we've always had problems with drawer number 3. I mean, that's why it says out of order, do not use. Ben said it doesn't make sense. Why does it only happen when we put a body in drawer number 3? The supervisor said, I don't know. I don't care. Just don't use it. For any new watchers, this is my only Storytime account. If you don't see over 400,000 followers, that's not me. I don't mind people using my content, but what I do mind is people pretending to be me, selling products on TikTok Shop using my name and face. Check the followers and name, and if it don't match, report them.
This story was sent to me by a follower that we're going to call Sarah, and she told me that there's one house her family still refuses to explain to this very day. They simply call it the Edison house. So Sarah told me that she was born there on a very cold morning in January, and it was an old 3-story bedroom house with a basement and a row of small apartments that were attached to one of the sides that her parents had managed. Family members were constantly coming and going, so the house always felt full. But according to her, they were not the only residents that were living there. And long before she was old enough to understand what was happening, strange things surrounded her family. And she remembers hearing adults whisper about curses and witches and rituals, and one of her uncles had become convinced he was under some kind of spell. Sarah's grandmother eventually sought out a local woman who claimed that she could remove this energy and fix whatever was going on inside of the home. But according to the family, whatever she did, it worked, but the strange events inside the house never stopped. It made it settle for a little bit, she said, and then it kicked right back up. Sarah's own encounter happened when she was only about 3 years old. And she said her older brother and sister were at school one day, and like, any curious little kid, she wandered into her brother's bedroom looking for his chemistry set. And she had laughed, while telling me that she had no idea what she planned on doing with it, just that she liked anything that involved fire, so she was a little pyromaniac. And as she stepped into the room, something caught her attention. In the upper right corner of the bedroom floated this massive glowing orb, and she said it looked like someone had somehow crammed the sun into the corner of the room, and it burned with a very deep orange and golden light. Yet it didn't hurt her eyes, and the strangest part was that she wasn't scared of this light or this orb. She told me an overwhelming feeling of peace had washed over her. She simply stood there staring at it until, without making a sound, the light began to then slowly fade away. Now, years later, she mentioned the experience to her sister, and before Sarah could even finish describing it, her sister just interrupted it, and she's like, oh, I've seen it too, plenty of times. Except hers wasn't orange. She said hers was a brilliant white light, and it appeared in the very same corner of the room as well. And at first it formed into a glowing triangle that was suspended in the air. Then it slowly unfolded into what she described as a cone of light that was reaching out toward her. And just before it touched her, it suddenly collapsed into a tiny flicker, and then it disappeared. Their brother, he had an entirely different experience inside of the home. One night he woke up staring at the ceiling because he couldn't move. And then without warning, he felt his entire bed lift off the floor, shake violently and vibrate, and then slam back down. And again, he said he hovered for maybe several seconds, and then it ended up coming crashing back down. And after that, their mother had finally had enough. She invited a priest over to bless the house. And as he was praying through every room in the hallway, he started to get this sense of dread that was overwhelming to him. And for a while, everyone hoped that it was over after he had left. But Sarah said her mother continued hearing slow footsteps that were pacing up and down the hallway late at night. No more voices, no more doors opening and slamming. At this point, it was just footsteps, and they were going back and forth long after everyone else had gone to sleep. Sarah's family eventually moved away, but whenever they get together, someone always brings up the old Edison house, and they still can't agree on, what was inside of it, what kind of energy was there, what had maybe happened before it. But every one of them experienced something different inside of that home, and none of them ever forgot it to this very day. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. According to a follower named Gina, one of the most comforting and yet unsettling things that she has ever experienced happened almost exactly 1 year after the passing of her best friend. And she claims that she still has the photograph, which I'm going to show at the end. Now, before I tell this story, there is absolutely no way for me to verify whether any of this is true and what appears in the image or how it got there. It could be a reflection, it could be a strange trick of lighting, or it could be exactly what Gina believes it is. So take it as entertainment and you can decide for yourselves. Now, Gina told me that her best friend Lauren passed away in 2019 after a long battle with cancer. And they had known each other since they were teenagers. They went through school together. They lived together for a short time in their 20s. And they spoke almost every single day. They were like the sister that each other never had. And Lauren was only 31 when she passed. And Gina said the loss completely changed her life. And for months, she struggled to go anywhere or enjoy anything without feeling guilty almost, because they did everything together. And she said every time that she left, part of her immediately thought, you know, like, Lauren should still be here. This isn't fair. But Lauren had always been the type of person who loved going out and loved living a very active lifestyle. She loved music, she loved dancing, and more than anything, she absolutely loved traveling. And one of her favorite places to travel was New Orleans. And she loved the old buildings, the strange history, the food, the music, the culture, everything. And the fact that the city itself seemed to come alive after dark. And almost a year after Lauren's passing, Gina's husband surprised her with a trip there for a family birthday. And at first, Gina really didn't want to go. She felt like the utmost amount of guilt, but the trip happened to fall during the same week as Lauren's birthday. And she knew, being, you know, one of Lauren's favorite cities, it would bring back a lot of memories. But eventually, she ended up agreeing. So they went. And on the second night, Gina, her husband, and several members of his family went out to a crowded bar near the French Quarter. And there was live music, people were dancing, and for the first time in a very, very long time, Gina said she actually felt like herself again. And then the band started playing a song that Lauren used to sing constantly whenever they went there. And Gina immediately became emotional. Maybe it was a little bit of the drinking, but, she tried to hold it together. But after a few seconds, she excused herself and she went to the bathroom. And she said she stood alone in front of the mirror for several minutes. She was wiping away tears, and she was just quietly saying out loud, "I wish you were here. I miss you. I wish you were here. This isn't fair. Where are you?" And after calming down, she noticed the bathroom had this huge antique mirror surrounded by dim gold lights. So she pulled out her phone and she took a few pictures of herself, like most women do. And nothing dramatic, just 3 quick mirror selfies before heading back out. And later that night, while sitting at the table, Gina began looking through the photos, and the first one looked completely normal, and so did the second. But in the third picture, there appeared to be someone standing directly behind her. And at first, Gina thought, maybe another woman must have, walked past, into the bathroom, or, without her noticing, but she was certain she had been alone. And the figure was partially blocked by Gina's shoulder and the phone, but enough of the face was visible to make out dark hair, her pale skin, and what looked like an outline of a familiar smile. Gina enlarged the photograph, and the longer that she looked at it, the more she became convinced she was actually looking at Lauren. And she immediately showed the photo to her husband, and he didn't even know what to say, because he's a skeptic in general, but he was completely shocked. And he had known Lauren too, and he even admitted that the figure strangely looked like her. It was very similar. And Gina said the picture frightened her at first, but after staring at it for a little while, the fear slowly disappeared and a more of a comforting feeling took over. And she remembered that it was Lauren's birthday week, and they were in one of Lauren's favorite cities. And only a few moments before taking the photograph, Gina had stood in front of that mirror in the bathroom, just outside of the bathroom, and told her that she wished that she was there. And, Gina now keeps that photo saved in several different places because she is absolutely terrified of losing it and misplacing it. She doesn't claim to know for certain that it's a ghost. I mean, you are in one of the most haunted places in the United States, but she believes Lauren showed up in that picture for one reason, and that's to let her know that she had been there the entire night and that Gina didn't need to feel guilty for enjoying her life and moving on with her life. So what do you think? Was it just a strange reflection, or another person Gina somehow failed to notice, or did her best friend appear in one final photograph in the exact city where Gina wished that she could be there with her? Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
So just because a story doesn't take place in the Appalachian Mountains, it doesn't make it any less scary. And tonight's story is the perfect example of that. So with that being said, let's jump right into tonight's story. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. But before I get into tonight's story, I wanted to show you guys something that was sent to me that's truly so special. So a few months ago, a sweet woman named Michelle reached out and she wanted to make me something special for Tea After Midnight.
Aw,
and
that's
this
sweet.
is the beautiful piece that she created,
Oh, wow, that's
as well
gorgeous.
as this beautiful spoon. When I
What?
tell you guys I opened this up yesterday and I
That's
ugly
super
cried,
awesome.
I mean it. Because just to look at this and know how much time and effort she spent into making this, it just brought happy tears to my eyes, because this is one of the most beautiful pieces that I've ever seen. She handcrafted every part of this, and it's so special, and I'm so honored that I get to have a piece of her artwork in my home.
Indeed.
And Michelle, if you're watching, I just want to take the time to say thank you so much for all the time and the energy and the love that you spent putting into crafting this. It is truly so beautiful, and I will treasure this forever. I'm going to tag Michelle in this video, so if you guys could, please go over there, give her a follow, show her a lot of love on her videos. She truly deserves it. And with that being said, let's jump right into tonight's story. This story comes from Emma. Hey Savannah, my name is Emma, and I have a scary story that took place when I was in middle school. I've watched your videos for a while now and have been contemplating whether or not to share my own story. I've been scared to relive this moment, but I think it's time I told someone. It was the last day of 7th grade, and my friends decided that we should have a sleepover to celebrate finishing the school year. The sleepover was huge, with around 15 girls. We were all going to my friend's house, whose name I'll keep private for her sake. We will call her Jamie. Jamie lived about 15 minutes out of the city. I live in a rural town in Wisconsin, so this far out meant she lived completely isolated from everyone. The nearest neighbor was a 5-minute drive, and her house was on a big lot with at least 10 acres of woods in her backyard. The sleepover started out as your classic teenage girl hangout. Prank calling, painting nails, braiding hair, gossiping, etc. That is, until it began to get dark outside, and one of my friends suggested we played sardines in the woods. So if you don't know what sardines in the woods means, I didn't either. I had to look it up, and it basically said it's a reverse hide and seek. So one person hides and everybody else seeks. Everyone was very enthusiastic about playing, including myself. Some girls were scared to go out in the woods, so they were the ones who got partners to play with. I have always been interested in scary stuff like ghost stories and horror films, so I thought going alone would be very exciting. Everyone was provided a flashlight and had to turn in their phones so no cheating could take place. Jamie was the first to go hide because it was her house and she knew her way around the woods the best. The starting time was 10:50 and we were told to give her about 5 minutes to find a good place to hide. After the time was up, everyone ran in different directions. Most of the girls went looking in her shed and front yard area, but I ran into the woods thinking she would go deep into them in hopes of finding the best spot to hide. I was shining my flashlight in front of me when I heard a branch snap from behind me. I was pretty deep into the woods, so I figured I'd bypass Jamie and she was trying to scoot away from me. I whipped around and started teasingly saying her name. I looked all over the place, but I didn't see her. I stayed in the general location because I figured she couldn't have gone super far. But then my flashlight died. I was surrounded in complete darkness and started to get a little scared. And that's when I started to hear someone whisper my name. I thought it was Jamie trying to give me her location, so I started calling out to it. The whispering was getting louder and started to sound more weird. It was very distorted and almost forced out. I got a super uneasy feeling and it felt like my heart was going to beat right out of my chest. I dropped my flashlight and started to book it out of the woods towards the direction of the house. When I started running, it sounded like something was behind me, keeping pace with me. Out of terror, I screamed and tried to run even faster. I then saw the lights from the house and two of my friends looking into the woods. I ran up to them with rigid breath and they asked me what was wrong. I told them that it sounded like something was chasing me out of the woods and we needed to get back together because Jamie was calling my name. They looked at each other worried, and one of them said that they had found Jamie in some bushes and everyone was waiting for me for at least 10 minutes. They were only by the woods because they heard me scream and got worried. My heart literally sank and I felt like I was going to cry. They took me to the group and everyone wanted to play another round. The only problem was I was the last to find the group, so I was the one who needed to hide this time. I didn't want to seem like a wuss asking to hide with someone, so I kept my fear to myself. However, I did ask for another flashlight because I dropped mine earlier in the woods. They gave me one and said I had 5 minutes to hide. I did not want to hide in the woods because of what happened before, so I went to the other side of her property. There was this little open area with trees in front of it and the woods behind it. I was laying down on the ground so the overgrown grass could give me extra cover. About 4 minutes passed and the sound of the crickets chirping completely stopped. A sense of dread washed over me and I was already terrified of being alone. I shined my flashlight in the woods behind me and I saw the tall grass starting to shift as if someone was crawling in it. I was paralyzed even though my brain was telling me to get up and run. That's when a pair of glowing yellow eyes met mine. The thing stood up and the image is still burned into my mind to this day. It was tall with skinny long arms and legs and had hands with long jagged fingers and yellow nails. It had pale grayish skin and was covered in a deep red substance which I believe was blood. It then went on all fours and crawled behind a tree about 15 feet away from me. Half its body was still showing because the tree was too small to cover it fully and it was just staring at me. It then stood up again and lunged its way toward me and I snapped out of my paralyzed state and sprinted for my life towards the house. I heard it running towards me, but when I got close enough to the house, the footsteps stopped. I went into the garage and slammed the door behind me. After 10 minutes of sitting on the floor crying, I got the courage to peek through the window, but I saw nothing. I went inside and called through the patio door that I was done playing. My friends must have known something was wrong based off the sound of my voice. They asked me what was wrong, and I just shook my head saying I was spooked. I didn't tell them what I saw because I didn't want to scare them, and I was scared that if I said anything out loud, it would come back for me. When we went to sleep that night, I made sure I was in the middle of everyone. It did comfort me a little, but I still couldn't fall asleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard 3 slow taps on the window. There were no trees by that area, so I knew it was the thing. I forced my eyes closed and pretended I was asleep. I didn't want to give it attention in hopes that it would leave me alone. I eventually did fall asleep. However, the next morning, I asked Jamie if she had ever seen anything strange in the woods. She told me that she had heard stories from her dad about times he had experienced weird things, but she thought he was just trying to spook her. I just nodded my head and told her to consider listening. She gave me a weird look but said okay. After that sleepover, I went over to her house a couple times but never slept over again. About 5 months later, her family moved away without any warning, and Jamie just said it was for family reasons. But I believe that it was because her family experienced what I did that night. So Emma, I don't know what you saw, but this sounds eerily similar to what my dad saw when he was a kid. A few episodes ago, I shared my dad's personal scary story with you guys, and the creature in that thing sounds identical to what she saw. So I definitely don't know for sure what you saw, but a lot of people were commenting on the other video saying that it was a flesh pedestrian, and honestly, I think I agree. But that's honestly so terrifying that you came that close to something like this. So I genuinely...
This Kenyan lawyer has sued Israel for crucifying Jesus. You see, this is Dola Indidis. And in 2007, he filed a lawsuit in the High Court of Nairobi claiming that the original trial of Jesus did not conform to the rule of law, even by the standards of that era. He argued, according to the Bible, that Jesus was questioned unfairly, never given a real chance to defend himself, and beaten and humiliated before he was even sentenced. Right? And despite being a couple thousand years late, he says all of that is legal ground to have a retrial and to have Jesus' death sentence overturned. And this is no joke. This is a serious lawsuit. He even explicitly explicitly names multiple figures from the original biblical account as defendants, as well as the Republic of Italy and the State of Israel. But after the Kenyan courts rejected his lawsuit, he took it a step further by filing a petition with the International Criminal Court of Justice in 2013, 2017, and then again in 2021. Bro will not rest until he has justice for Jesus. Now, ultimately, the ICJ, they kind of smacked this whole thing down, saying they have no jurisdiction and that it's theoretically impossible for us to consider this case. So the question is, should bro just give up or keep trying?
Hey, what's up? Going through another little adventure here. This is the Queen Anne Prairie Eckert Cemetery, which again is basically lost out in an overgrown wooded area off of a main street. You can see there's several headstones here. These are some of the earliest settlers and pioneers.
So there is absolute chaos, and this is Thursday, August the 6th, over airspace in the Midwest. So FAA had a system outage, and it impacted huge number of flights. So there have been 5,300 nationwide delays and 320 flight cancellations.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, this has caused absolute chaos because Chicago O'Hare Airport is one of the biggest airports in the United States, and this airport was shut down. You can see by this map right here, everything in orange was affected. So you've got Minneapolis, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. Basically the entire Midwest was shut down today. Now I'm going to tell you guys what this means. So the FAA's NOTAM, N-O-T-A-M, had a system failure, which prevents safety data from being distributed, which means that there was critical pre-flight briefings that the access was lost for all of the pilots. Now the FAA ordered a system-wide ground stop, which this was done for safety purposes, but this is absolutely crazy. Now, crew legality and duty time limits. So crews timed out on these flights, and which caused even further chaos because the crews could not continue on because of their hours that they were allowed to work. So they timed out. So this left flights without pilots and crews. Now, the network going down had a huge cascading effect, and this affected the whole entire country basically, but most of all the Midwest, which is where Chicago O'Hare is. You've got Dayton International, you have got the Cincinnati Airport. I mean, all of these big airports, this is absolutely mind-blowing that this is going on. Now, this is affecting over 330,000 square miles of airspace in the United States. So this is a pretty wild thing that's going on right now. So we don't know if this was an FAA thing, if this was some sort of a hack on the FAA system, or if this is one of the side effects of being at war right now. I'm not sure.
This video is from the devil.
Personality disorder going on? Is that the thing? We miss the old you. Maybe you could go out and find her and come back and give it another shot, huh? Yeah, you should try singing tenor. 10 or 15 miles from here.
Thank you.
This is disgusting. It is atrocity to look at. I have no idea how this is mainstream, how it's popular, and how this is allowed. But at the same time, if I had Jesus sitting right next to me right now and he saw this, what would he be seeing? Now, I don't know you, but I think Jesus would see someone that's extremely hurt, someone that has been through so much that she can no longer take it, that she is lashing out, that she is crying out for help, someone that needs the love of the Father more than anyone else. Jesus would see someone he would even disciple. Now, I don't say this to be controversial. I know that this is something that is absolutely terrible. I know that the Bible says that, like in this video, in the end times, in the last days, evil would be called good and good would be called evil. The end of that video where they praise her for this is exactly that. But I'm making this video more as an invitation to look at this and to be able to see nothing else than a woman that has lost her way and that more than anything, she needs the Father. I think that's what Jesus would want us to do. Because if we all welcome Jesus into our hearts a little bit more, just like this each day, we start to notice that maybe at the end of the day, we're not so far away from him. Maybe he is sitting right next to us all the time.
Story time. Ancient Magnetism and Psychic Forces, written by a man named L.H. Anderson in 1895. Look him up real quick. Tell me if you can find any information about L.H. Anderson, the Freemason who wrote The Key to Power in 1895. In Matthew 17:21, we went over the missing verse about healing all disease and sickness. When I was reading this book, I noticed it mentioned, howbeit this kind goeth out not but by prayer and fasting. What is this book written about? Magnetism gives us information about the existence and action of the life of dreams and the power of creation. It is also the best means of breaking the seal which closes the mysteries of antiquity, rich and fancy, whilst it discloses the similarity and depth of man's capacity and shows us an accordance of phenomenon which formerly in magic was attributed to enchantment and to deceit. It's kind of funny. The dude that built Coral Castle said the entire world is built out of little tiny magnets. Yeah. All of Parker's electrical equipment is magnets wrapped in wires. Yeah. Julian's machine runs off of magnetrons. Yeah. The atoms within everything are bonded by magnetic bonds. What does it say about magnetism? Magnetism possesses properties which are not only practically useful as regards health and the relations of life, but also in respect to the highest interest of mankind. In human nature lies the germs of power which are occasionally met with in this earthly form, but which so far have never been perfectly developed except in the man of Jesus Christ. The Freemason I can find no history about is talking about Jesus being the perfect example of enlightenment through magnetic principles. We're getting into ancient esoteric Jewish shit. Magnetism gives us information about the existence and action of the life of dreams and the power of creation. By animal magnetism, hold on, what is animal magnetism? It is called animal magnetism because the animal part of a man is the medium, the conducting body of his penetrating magnetism, which distinguishes our animal senses and the higher faculties of man. By these means, we discover in animal magnetism a new medical science, or the art of healing and prevention of disease, not through a substance, but by a power, a movement which, like sound in the air, light in the ether, appears to be endowed with a surpassing mobility. Was that talking about healing all sickness and disease with thought? That's what that sounds like that's talking about. Here's the chapter I'm in now. Secrets of the Egyptian Magi.
A viewer emailed me after watching one of my videos, and he had asked me not to use his real name because he still works in the freight industry. And he told me that he'd spent nearly 15 years driving trucks throughout the Pacific Northwest. And most of the time he hauled ordinary freight. But the last 3 years had been a little different for him. And he'd been contracted by a private logistics company that paid exceptionally well, but every shipment came with one rule, and that is to not ask any questions. And he said he'd transported some strange cargo over the years, but nothing compares to one delivery that still keeps him kind of awake at night. And it was late one rainy evening, and he was instructed to pick up a single object from an old stone monastery that was tucked away in the mountains. And waiting outside were 2 elderly priests and several silent men that were dressed in black. And he thought maybe they were some other type of clergymen as well. They carried out an ancient iron relic that was about the size of like a toolbox, he said. It was wrapped in heavy chains, sealed with dark red wax, and engraved with faded Latin inscriptions that he couldn't even read. Now, before placing it inside a reinforced steel shipping container, one of the priests rested his hands on it and made the sign of the cross and quietly whispered something that he knew to be Latin, but he couldn't quite make out what it was. But later on, he had learned roughly that it translated to, "May it protect those who live under the curse." and he assumed it was maybe part of some old, religious tradition. He wasn't really religious himself, but the destination wasn't a church where he had to deliver it to. It wasn't even a town. It was just GPS coordinates that were buried in the forest of Washington. And when he finally arrived after hours of driving through logging roads, 6 men were already waiting for him outside, and they all wore identical dark clothing with no logos or markings, and none of them introduced themselves, and none of them smiled. They resembled the men at the first location. And what unsettled him most wasn't how they looked. It was how disciplined they were. Every movement, he said, was like deliberate and scripted. Every person seemed to know exactly what to do without speaking. It was very choreographed. And as they began unloading the container themselves, one of the heavy steel doors had shifted open just enough for him to glance inside. And that's when he froze, because inside, on the walls of the reinforced container, were these massive claw marks that were covering it. They weren't scratches, not deep gouges that were ripped into the steel by machinery. 4 perfectly parallel grooves that ran across the walls. Some were several feet long, and the metal had actually curled outward as though something unimaginably powerful had tried to claw its way out from the inside. And there were no signs of cutting tools, no torch marks, no grinder residue, just torn steel. And he reached out and ran his fingers across one of the grooves, and he said it was real. Like, when he turned around, every member of the group had stopped what they were doing, and they were all just staring directly at him. There was no anger in their faces, there was no panic, just complete silence. Then the eldest man had stepped forward, and he gently lifted the chain to the relic into his arms, and the others instinctively lowered their heads as if whatever it contained was very sacred or very dangerous. And the driver left without another word from anybody, and a few weeks later he tried looking up the logistics company, and it was gone. There was no business records, there was no website, it was nothing. It was done through a party through another party. And he ended his email with me that this still gives him chills, and he doesn't know what those people believed, but he knows that they were protecting whatever relic this was, and he believes that they were protecting whatever the relic was keeping contained. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you've heard anything about this before in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not from there, so I have no idea, but let me know what you guys think and if you've seen this before.
This is the history of the Jews, 1866. Why is the world so obsessed with the Jews? The country received the name of Palestine. I am after reading that it was called Judea from Judah. I want to know more about these guys. Judea, Palestine, or the Holy Land. So I got some interesting books. Actually called Phoenicia. I like to start out by saying I'm not suicidal and I'm very healthy. This is the complete works of Flavius Josephus. Josephus was a Jewish historian born in 37 AD, a couple years after Jesus was crucified. He died in 100 AD and wrote a lot of pivotal works. This is an 1872 print containing the biography of Flavius Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, and Wars of the Jews. From Antiochus Epiphanes taking Jerusalem to the death of Herod the Great, the emperor who ordered the innocent of the massacres in Matthew. He tried to kill baby Jesus. Antiquities was written in 94 AD and Wars of the Jews in 75 AD. Josephus is an interesting character because his mother was nobility. He was captured by the Romans in 67 AD, but his life was spared when he predicted the election of Vespasian as emperor. Some think he was a Roman plant, other people think he was a great historian. This is a History of the Jews, Volume 3, 1866 by Henry Hart Milman. He was a doctor of divinity and professor in England. I'm most excited about these because they contain information on the Essenes, an obscure religious sect that Jesus was a part of. Notice, habits described, persecuted by the Romans, obscurity of their origin. Why is the world so obsessed with the Jews? Ever since seeing that color map of Palestine in the Bible, I've been wondering if they didn't get twisted back then and we're persecuting God's chosen people, the Palestinians, nigh to death, while the plant has been ruling the world. Why are we obsessed with this small, obscure strip of land in the Middle East? It makes no sense to me, but I figure if I go back about 150 years to Flavius Josephus and Henry Hart Milman, I'm going to find out the answer. And soon, I'm going to put them online so you can read them too. And once again, not suicidal at all. I have nothing against the Jews. I'm just extremely curious. And we all know, curiosity killed the cat.
A former mainstream rapper went on TikTok and exposed just how artists are essentially being forced into selling their souls to these record labels that they are a part of, okay? And when you listen to what he's saying and how they're making this happen, and then you go back and look at some of the things that artists have said about record labels, it actually makes a lot of sense, okay? And I believe this is a good example of when the Bible is talking about what a person can profit, or what would a person profit by gaining the whole world and losing their soul in the process, okay? I want to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Let's hop into this video, watch it, and react to it. Before we do me a quick favor. Hit that like button for the algorithm so that this video can reach more people like yourself. I truly appreciate you guys. Let's hop in.
One of the biggest songs in history at one point in time. I was literally on top of the world. Now, let me tell you this. I could have been a much bigger artist if I would have sold my soul, right? And a lot of people joke about that. They say, you got to sell your soul to do this and do that. See, the thing with me was I played it so smart. I didn't have to sell my soul, but I'm still doing good in life, right? Now, when you sign to a record label and you're making them millions and millions of dollars, this is one of the first things they do. And this is what they did to me. And it's all love to the label, by the way. No disrespect. They took me to a store to go shopping, right? And I was going to buy the materials out of the store that I wanted, right? And they stopped me and said, wait. No. Don't spend your own money. Spend this money. And they gave me a black card. They said, anything you want. Studio time, music video, whatever you want. This is the card you use. No more spending your own money. And that's where all the artists mess up. They get that card and they buy houses, cars, and everything. And when I tell you I made the label millions, I made the label millions. Believe it or not. So pretty much what I did, that first time they gave me that card, I swiped it. And that was the only time I ever swiped it. Because in my mind, I had already studied the game. I studied the game since a kid. So every time they asked me if I wanted to pay this, and pay that. Matter of fact, I even gave the card back. So what a lot of artists do when they sign and they get these big, huge budgets and get these cards and all that, they're paying for features. They're paying for music videos.
There is a contradiction on the very first page of the Bible that for some reason nobody talks about. On day 1, God says, let there be light, but he doesn't make the sun until day 4. So what was the light? Well, not to spoil anything, but reading at the surface level, you'll never get an answer. But with the occult reading, we do. Let's just start at the top. There's light on day 1, but the sun, the moon, and the stars don't come until day 4. So the first light can't be the sun. The sun doesn't exist yet. And unsurprisingly, the surface reading skips right past that, but the occult reading stops on it. Like we've discussed on my page many times before, when you see things that appear to be contradictions in ancient texts, it's a sign to look deeper. And in this case, it means that the first light was never physical light at all. The mystics called it the Ein Sof, or the primordial light. In other words, it's divine consciousness itself entering existence. So the first act of creation isn't the universe lighting up like with light from the sun. No, it's awareness opening its eyes for the very first time. And just like that, the line now means something completely different. Let there be light was never about a lamp in the sky. It's the moment that the divine first becomes knowable, conscious, aware. And that's all an occult reading is. Not scary, but hidden. It's the layer underneath the one that you were handed. And this should be no surprise, but every sacred text has it. The surface for everyone, and the depth for the ones who stop and refuse to read it flat on its face. And yeah, the fear around that word was put there for a reason, because once you learn to read this way, nobody can ever hand you the shallow version of anything ever again. And that is the whole reason I built the Inner Sanctum. To learn to read everything this way.
She's so violent.
I just realized I was muted, but you guys, this is my chicken best friend. I believe she's a year old now. She is from last year's strain of chickens, as well as Big Booty Brandy. Yeah, before that we have Frida. She's 3 years old. She's from the original batch. I would get a bunch of Fridas, but they would take over the whole town of Bayfield. So one Frida, which is a leghorn, one leghorn chicken is enough for me. They are so smart, but yeah, she just runs the yard. But this is best friend. She is not a Plymouth Rock. She's a, oh my goodness. Is she a Plymouth? Anyways, her name is Best Friend, and she is going crazy because she loves the spots on Luna's shorts.
Look at this. Easy. Are you a rooster? No, you lay eggs. You scare me.
Hello. Hi, Jared. This is John from John Breaks Bad News. I have some bad news from somebody who would like to remain anonymous. Jared, your wife is cheating on you with a guy who you know for over a year. There has been more than one guy, and she's trying to save up and leave without losing it all. You need to run. Sorry, bud. Who is this? This is John.
This is bad.
Oh, yeah.
This poor guy.
Huh. Interesting. And somebody wanted me to tell you that. So. Oh, yeah? You could take it with a grain of salt, or, look around to see if there's any signs that your wife may be cheating on you. Which sucks. I'm sorry. If that is the case. So who is this? I'm John from John Breaks Bad News. I run a service where people hire me to deliver messages to other people. And somebody hired me to deliver this message to you. Really? Yes. Was it a male or a female that delivered it? I don't know. It's anonymous. So you can't tell me, huh? No, I'm sorry. What was the point of the call then? Well, now you have a suspicion that your wife is cheating on you, and that could be true or untrue, and maybe you decide to investigate it and find out that it is true, or you investigate it and find out that it isn't true. Ball's in your court now. All right. Where are you from? I'm from New York. You're from New York? Yes. Do you even know where I'm from? No. And you said my wife is who? I don't even have your wife's name. You don't even have my wife's name? No. Huh. That was not included in the message. The message verbatim says Jared's wife is cheating on him with a guy, parentheses, who you know for over a year. There has been more than one guy. She's trying to save up and leave without losing it all. Run. Huh. So. Interesting. Sorry. Anyway,
Do you remember when John Breaks Bad News used to be funny? This one's sad. I feel bad for Jared.
Hope you have a great day. Yep. All right. Love you. Bye.
Since we couldn't get close to the old Height Marina, I wanted to show you what it looks like from above. So before leaving, I drove back up the road to an overlook with a much better view of the area.
Man, I haven't been to Lake Powell.
Okay, so I just got here and it's
forever.
worse than I thought. Last time I was here, I saw some people fishing. They had little small fishing boats. But now I look at the marina, the ramp, and it's just so far from the water. Here, I'll show you. So here's the overlook. You can't even see the river. Barely, just right there. Yeah, right there. So there's the ramp. So there's the old campground, the RV park. There's the Height facilities. And this is all, you see the ramp? The water came all the way up there.
That is crazy, guys.
This is all sediment now. This is all
our water.
from the river coming
need to
in.
go back
There's supposed to be a lake
like
here
we
behind
have
me.
before in
But there's
history.
barely even a river.
History, mostly unknown to us, but
So where does the river come in? So it winds down here.
some of us know.
Goes all the way over there. See that bridge? That's where the Colorado River enters. But farther up, the Green River had already entered the Colorado River, and then they're both coming down through here. This is... wow. I would love to see that, but I know there's a lot of buildings over here that they just don't want people messing around in. And obviously there's no point to having a marina if the ramp doesn't even touch the water at all. But for us, this is as far as we can go. I don't know what Lake Powell will look like in even 3, 5, 10, or 20 years from now. Maybe the water rises again. Maybe places like Bullfrog continue adapting as they have for years. When I was standing at Height, I just realized how much this place can change in a single lifetime. Even in a few years. I remember Lake Powell one way, but today looks very different. And whatever happens next, I hope future generations still get to experience some of that magic I remember.
So if you're kind of like me and find that time seems to be a little off lately, well, I found a table of time in this 1875 Bible, and let's take a look at it. Maybe you can kind of help.
That is awesome.
Help me figure out what's going on here. So as you can see here, the Bible is from 1875. And this right here is the table of time. And according to it, the first month, March, April, was the beginning of the year. And if you actually look like October 8, Nov 9, December 10, these months were actually in sync back then with the numbers. Now, I'm not really sure about this 13th thing going on here, but it would kind of make sense that there was 13 months at 28 days. As you can see here, first day of the week, Sunday, second day, Monday, etc. 7.
The Tower of Babel wasn't stopped because it was arrogant. It was stopped because it was working. Before we get started, thank you to the Saint on TikTok. This is one that I owe to you. Now, let's get back to the text, okay? There's one people speaking one language saying, let's build a tower to the heavens and make a name for ourselves. And God's reaction actually isn't outrage. This is what he says. They are one people with one language, and nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them now. So right off the bat, this isn't scorn, it's recognition. He looks at a unified humanity and sees there's no ceiling on what they can reach, and that is what he moves to stop. Now let's get esoteric, okay? In the older readings, the tower was never made of brick and stone at all. It was a technology of ascent. Put simply, it represented humanity trying to reach the heavens as one mind. Then you might be thinking, why would God pump the brakes? Well, the answer is because ascent was never meant to be taken by force. You don't storm heaven as a mob, okay? You climb by being transformed, by becoming worthy of the height. Babel was just a shortcut. It was a way to seize the divine without being changed by it. And a fallen humanity holding that power, unready as one, that's not glory. It's just catastrophe. So the Kabbalists then read the confusion of the speech as the shattering of the primordial tongue. This was the original speech where the word for a thing was the thing. It was the language that could reshape reality itself, and it got splintered into 70 fragments, and that power went along with it. So what was lost at Babel wasn't just understanding each other. This isn't a story about language. It was actually the lost word itself, spiritually. They got all broken into pieces, and it can never be spoken alone. And that is exactly why I built the Inner Sanctum, to gather the scattered pieces back into one place, the broken traditions studied as one tongue again. And right now we're doing something very special. It is easier to join than ever before, so click the link in my bio and I'll see you inside.
Everybody who's been...
Okay guys, so I said we were going to go after that, but I looked at what time we're at, and let's just go to 30 after, and then we'll stop there. Make it an even 30.
I'm wondering where I've been the last few days. You see it here. Have I been alive, George?
You've been alive.
What have I been doing?
Life lessons.
Working on cars all day long and going through probably the hardest time of my life. You got to remember that content creators are still normal people. We still have broke down cars. We still have personal lives. We still have family problems. We still have real world shit. Yep. And I feel like this is the biggest test of my life. A lot of things are coming up against me ever since I started with those old Bibles, man. Jedi. This is a test, and I'm going through it right now. If you're a praying person, please pray for me. If you're a loving person, please send me love. If you're a helping person, please help me. Please help George. I need all the help I can get right now. I think I've inspired a whole lot of people over the years, and I hope to keep doing so. But right now, I am slogging through the shittiest sandwich you've ever seen. Like, for real. Thank God I have a little help from my friends.
Oh, yeah.
I do this for a living, so it's not so bad.
Shit.
Because Christians did not hold back, okay? This is probably one of the fastest responses that I've seen from Christians going after a company for unfair treatment. Okay, we're going to look at that, but first I want to show y'all a couple of more of these clips showing they don't want the name of Jesus on these Coke bottles.
Okay, so a friend just sent this to me about Coca-Cola, and we need to go see if it's true.
Okay, guys, I just had to pause there really quick because there was another thing that happened. A bunch of different broadcasts of people in sports, etc., and sending praise to Jesus for helping them to achieve this goal that they most likely been praying in his name about for so long. And every time his name is spoken or referred to on television that is owned by the oligarchy and the higher powers, the men and women behind the curtain, the they, them, he, she, whoever the frack they are, yeah, it will fizzle out. Oh, man. Unfortunately, we're having some broadcasting errors. Let's go on over to so-and-so, and yeah, and then everything's just fine. But you say that name, the name of my big brother, Jesus Christ, they will sizzle your feed. They don't like it. And it's been said about the giants, the Nephilim, the whoever these creatures or beings or whatever are that are under the Mile High Airport and different places like that where they have been known to be using their services. It used to be Area 51. Now it's Area 40 something, or who knows. All over the place, all over the world, even underwater. You are not allowed to say the Lord's name. And I'm not talking about in vain. I'm saying period. Well, you can't find the name on a Coke bottle. I guess this is saying. I actually have a picture of my name on a Coke bottle, which I thought I would never, ever in my life see. I'm one, name being Tessa, where you can't find my name on keychains or anything like that.
It looks like if you go to the Coke website where you can personalize a can with someone's name on it, they will allow virtually anything under the sun except for Jesus is King. Okay, let's try the devil is king. Nice. How about we swap this guy out for Jesus? The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. How about Allah is good. Okay. Jesus is good. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Muhammad is good. Satan is good. Just one more time for kicks and giggles. Jesus is good. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Now I just want to try things. You cannot use Virgin Mary. Name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. How can you not put Virgin Mary? Jesus Christ.
No.
The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Holy Trinity. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Holy Spirit. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Okay, let's take this back to Old Testament. Yahweh is good. Allowed. Now I'm just really curious. Jesus is bad.
No.
Jesus is evil. Jesus is God. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Christ is king. The name or phrase you've submitted is not permitted. Jesus is the devil. Allowed on the freaking can. What are we doing?
What?
Okay, I ain't gonna lie. All right, I didn't see this whole video. All right, I saw like the first 15 seconds, and I was like, this is a good clip. She showed a lot of names. I didn't see those names. So they will allow you to say Jesus is the devil. But when you say Jesus is king, it doesn't allow it. They allow Yahweh, but Yahweh is such it is such a unique name. You know what?
If you pulled over in the middle of nowhere and heard your own voice calling back to you from the woods, would you stay long enough to find out who was talking to you, or would you get out of there?
Yeah.
Well, this story was sent to me by a follower named Jose, and after reading it a few times, I honestly debated whether or not I really wanted to share it. Only because, I mean, it is really out there. And as always, there's no way for me to verify what he actually experienced. So take it as entertainment and you can decide for yourselves. Now, according to Jose, this happened only a few months ago. And he says he still refuses to drive that stretch of highway after dark. He's done it a couple of times, but he really tries to avoid it. Now, Jose had been driving home late one night after visiting family, and his GPS had taken him down a deserted highway that cut through miles of dense forest. And it wasn't like the kind of road that people, used unless they absolutely really had to. Now, there were no streetlights, no gas stations, no houses, and for nearly 40 minutes, he hadn't passed another vehicle. It was just him, the road, and an endless wall of trees that was on either side of him. But about halfway through that drive, his dashboard chimed and the tire pressure light came on. And at first he ignored it like many of us do, and figuring, you know what, I'll make it to the next stop. I'll be fine. But after another mile or so, he noticed that the steering wheel started to jerk a little bit, and he's like, you know what, I don't want to risk blowing out on this, middle of nowhere road. Let me just get out and check. So he found a small gravel shoulder just wide enough for him to pull onto. He shut off the engine, grabbed the tire gauge, and proceeded out and started to check on the tires. And immediately the silence hit him. It wasn't this peaceful silence. It was the kind that makes you realize just how alone you actually are. And the only sounds were insects somewhere, out in the distance, and the faint ticking of his engine cooling down. The tree line was incredibly close, maybe about 10 feet behind his vehicle. And because his headlights only illuminated the first few row of trees, everything beyond them disappeared into complete darkness. And he knelt beside the front driver's side tire and, started to check the pressure. And it was a little low, but nothing serious. And as he stood up to move to the next tire, he heard what sounded like someone running. Not toward him, not like away from him, but just back and forth. And the footsteps stayed just beyond the trees, and they were moving parallel to the road as if someone was sprinting from left to right, and then immediately turning around and running back again the other way. Jose said it sounded unmistakably bipedal, and it was heavy enough to be a person, but strangely rhythmic, he said. Almost like whatever it was wanted him to know that it was there without ever stepping into the open, and that it was watching. He froze, and the footsteps would stop immediately, and for several seconds there wasn't a single sound. He convinced himself that it had to be a deer or maybe some other animal. It didn't sound like one, but in that moment he was just trying to rationalize what was happening to try to calm himself down. Yeah. So he walked to the next tire, and the running would start again. This time it sounded a little bit closer to him. So Jose swung his flashlight toward the wooded area where he was hearing it, sweeping across, but all he found were trunks, branches, and complete darkness. Trying to, sound calmer than he felt and be a little assertive, he called out, who's there? And there was no answer. Not even the footsteps replied. And the silence that followed was somehow worse, I feel. He kept checking the tires, telling himself, I'm almost done. But then the sounds changed. The running stopped altogether, and it was replaced by faint whispers drifting through the trees. And he couldn't make out any words. It sounded like multiple voices speaking just quietly enough to stay unintelligible. And every few seconds, one of the whispers would trail off into a soft giggle. And Jose said that was the moment that he knew that something wasn't right here, and whatever was making these sounds never came any closer, but it also never moved away from him. It just stayed hidden just beyond the tree line, almost pacing him as he was working his way around his vehicle. And by the time that he reached the last tire, his hands were shaking so badly that he actually dropped the tire gauge twice. And every instinct in his body told him to get back in the car and leave. But he was already there. He had one more tire left, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to get this done. So he checked it as quickly as he could, and then he slowly stood up, and without taking his eyes off of the wooded area, he began backing toward the driver's side door. And that's when he heard it, clear as day. Who's there? Jose said his stomach dropped instantly because it wasn't just someone repeating what he had just called out. It was his voice, the exact same tone, the exact same inflection, everything, and exactly the way that he said it only moments earlier was now being repeated. He described it as hearing like a recording of himself played back from somewhere inside of this dark forest. His body reacted before his mind could. He said he yanked out his phone from his pocket, pointed it toward the direction that the voice had come from, and snapped a quick single picture before jumping back into his vehicle. He locked the doors, threw it into drive, and he sped out of there as quick as he could. And he didn't stop until he reached a gas station, which was about 30 minutes away. Only then did he remember the photo. His mind started to calm down a little bit. So he opened it up, expecting nothing more than a blurry picture of trees illuminated by his headlights. And at first, that's exactly what it looked like. But when he zoomed in on the area where he had heard the voice, he noticed something standing just inside the tree line. And it was the image was very grainy, far too blurry to identify really any features. But it didn't need to be, because the outline was unmistakable. It was a human-shaped figure standing perfectly still, partially hidden behind the trees, exactly where this voice had come from. And Jose swears that, there hadn't been anyone else standing there when he looked with his own eyes, but yet somehow his phone had caught something that was watching him from the darkness. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, if you've experienced anything like this. I know that some cultures or states, they call them a mimic or a rake, a skinwalker. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments if you've experienced this before.
Yeah, I say it too.
Hello.
Hi, Brandon. This is John from John Breaks Bad News. I have some bad news from John for you. He wanted me to tell you that when you eat food, it sounds like the cheeks of a fat maiden being clapped in the distance. As you chew your food, it is like staring into a garbage disposal as it destroys the leftover food. That food sent to a void, never to return. Close your damn mouth while eating.
Wow.
Who is this?
This is John from John Breaks Bad News.
And this message is from who?
John?
Oh, okay, gotcha. I think that's all relevant information. I do appreciate the call and the correction.
So, are you gonna change your behavior, or are you just gonna keep acting like the same asshole?
No, I'm definitely gonna try to pull it together when I eat food, especially in front of other people.
Well, I'm glad that this has been an eye-opening experience for you. I was very polite during this call. Do you mind leaving me a review on my Facebook page?
Dude, I love your show, by the way.
That's fucking awesome.
And
I appreciate it.
It's really funny. Yeah. Where are you based out of? Where are you?
We're on Long Island.
Long Island? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is actually John. This is not an AI thing.
No, this is not an AI. I'm a real boy.
I'm a real boy. I can wipe my
Motherfucker.
own
I'm so
ass.
honored to be called by you.
I get so pissed when people accuse me of being AI.
Uh-oh.
I wait.
Oh, I mean, I know. I don't know. I didn't know if some people were, like an AI.
Oh no,
yeah. Pretend like they were you, but this sounds like a real person.
No, it's a real guy.
He's not real.
He is real.
Would I be able to watch this
Yeah.
later somewhere?
Yeah, it's we're streaming right now on YouTube.
Oh, gotcha. Well, John, you're doing great work.
I appreciate
and
it.
Wow.
Brandon.
You're definitely bringing
What
truth
a lovely man.
and light to some pretty dark places, and I appreciate it because I do have an issue with eating loudly in front of people. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I love you.
I
Just
love
go
you
into
too, babe.
primal
You have a
mode.
great day. Bye bye.
All right, bye.
Called your babe.
Oh yeah, babe.
I have a feeling all this is blocking more tunnels. I can see up there. For sure it is.
No.
Look, it's impossible to see what cut this.
What did cut this? When I was younger, I'd be down to go to these places,
See
but
there
the older I get, the more of a
Is
puss
a
I
room.
become.
It's unexcavated.
And
That's just the doorway.
I'm pretty short. I might still be okay, but looking at
Here's
it right
like a
now,
random
I'm kind
support
of freaking out
pillar.
inside. Kind of freaking
So they
out
were
inside.
obviously
Just one pillar
smart
for this
enough to
whole
leave
area.
supports.
Wow.
Wow.
That's what I said. Don't copy me.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
A few
John,
more
John.
cave systems they dug out. Big old rooms. Beautiful trees.
Beautiful.
It's popping right out of here.
It is. It's popping. Okay, after this video, we're done. Okay, guys. Sorry.
It's pretty
I
fascinating.
just can't let you go.
It's kind of creepy.
It is.
Everywhere you look
But
is
you've lit it up really good with your lighting
one of these
system.
to tie something,
Maybe
tie
it's for
something or
storage.
someone into
Could be-
place.
could
Like
be
there's
hammock.
that one, that one, that one, that one, that one.
Maybe they're hanging food.
They
So
didn't
the
want
damn mice don't
something or someone to get away.
Their food?
See, there's another one.
Yep. I'm
But it's
thinking
like
food.
thousands of years of weathering.
It's the cookery
Can't even
and
see
the storage.
how they cut these. So it adds to the mystery.
It's beautiful.
Looks like another secret room here. Look at all the beauty here.
It is
Flowers everywhere.
Flowers and
Beautiful, lush greens coming out. Let's go see inside this chamber.
That is badass, dude. This
Right away, I see a mystery.
could be my new thing.
Little, maybe a burial. Same with right here.
Wow. Thinking beds. The work desk when you work from
So
home.
bloody strange. Now I can see cut marks on this one. That is so strange. Little pathway cut up into there.
Mhm.
And that's what they would have saw if they were sleeping in there.
Could be a roof system over
So
that.
it's up
that was
high
no
enough
longer
if this
there.
floods, you're
That's
still
right.
out of the rain.
Yeah.
There is a bit of soot there, so
Mhm.
whole
Bedroom
thing was
heating.
probably covered.
Another bedroom heating.
It looks like it might have continued. Yeah, it looks all filled up. There was another tunnel. It's covered up. What a strange place. There's more places to tie something to. There. Here.
Maybe for decorating.
The whole thing is covered
maybe for torches, light.
with these holes
So
to tie
things you can
ropes
do.
to.
These tie
So I
ropes.
don't know if that was for humans or animals.
Oh my gosh.
Looks like there was. Yeah, there's another tunnel that goes there.
Alright, guys. Get back over here. Ooh. Well, that was our makeup night for missing Saturday night, and I really did miss you guys. Really, I did. Okay, so I can't remember if last week I had actually done the top 4 countries and the top 20 whatever lists, but I have one in front of me now for this week. From the 2nd to the 8th, number 1 is Australia, number 2 is Bangladesh, number 3 is Australia, and number 4 is Brazil. Thank you guys for that. Let's see. Number 1, United States. Number 2, Brazil. Number 3, Bangladesh. Number 4, Vietnam. Number 5, Australia. Number 6, United Kingdom. Number 7, United Arab Emirates. Argentina. Canada. I don't know what that was. Kind of freaked out right now. Switzerland is number 10. 11 is Germany. 12 is India. 13 is Sri Lanka. 14 is Morocco. 15 is Pakistan, 16 Taiwan, 17 Bolivia, 18 Congo Republic, 19 Ecuador, 20 Spain, 21 Italy, 22 Jordan, 23 Japan, 24 Kyrgyzstan, and 25 is other, but other is actually more up closer to number 5. But thank you guys so much once again for hanging out with me tonight. That was, I don't know, some pretty good little TikToks there, you know? Yeah, the dogs are going off again. I gotta go next door and I gotta check out what is going on over there. It's probably a family of raccoons. The albino one is probably the ringleader running the whole show. But it really was a pleasure hanging out with you tonight. Thank you to all my friends out there, wherever you may be listening, Beyond The Omniverse tonight. And a wonderful time. I can't wait to do it again next weekend. So I'm going to say Saturday. We're going to Denver on Wednesday. Hopefully we don't float away out into the universe or the omniverse or wherever you could float away to. Probably not too far. If we did. Moves, gravity. I don't think we're going to. But it gets your mind working. It gets your creative juices flowing. It makes you think. Don't forget, we're all in this together. Together we can make the world better, and together we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. And I feel like I'm begging at this point, but I'm not. If you have the means, ability, or initiative, if you believe in what I'm doing here, or just enjoy hanging out with me on the airwaves, please feel free to sling or fling some green my way. My yearly renewal of my Spreaker is coming up here in a couple days. The 14th, I believe, is when my cutoff date is, but it helped me pay off these things and helped me to keep the mothership afloat, you know? P.O. Box 663, Bayfield, Colorado 81122. Cash App at $TessaTNT, PayPal at TessaTNT, and Venmo at Tessa-Thomas-Peterson. Night night, live a light.